Hello and welcome back to the Resleevables Odyssey Edition. I'm your host, Patrick Sullivan, joined by Pro Tour champion, Magic Hall of Famer Patrick Chapin. And not to spoil too much here, but talk about rose-tinted glasses.
I don't know. I feel like my glasses, I was at a little bit of a different spot.
Mm-hmm.
I feel like I had a very accurate view of Odyssey at the time. And I think my take on Odyssey has held up exactly perfect.
Okay.
I feel like I have the exact right assessment and it has aged perfectly.
Yeah, I had the experience going through this file of finding love letters you wrote and received as a 14-year-old, of like you remember this feeling of such passion and joy and love, and going back and reading it was like, these can't get out. Like no one can ever know how I felt at this time. Little bit embarrassing. To catch you up to speed, we've just got done reviewing Apocalypse. That was the last set in Invasion block. A block known for having multicolored, having appealing designs, having the power level put in 3 and 4 and 5 mana cards as opposed to 1 and 2 mana cards. And all I can say is we had a good run. That gets us to Odyssey, where the Spikes are back in charge.
Back in charge. The Spikes are in charge in an unbridled way like never before. This set is actually, in many ways, the anti-Urza's Destiny.
You delve into that a little bit.
Okay, so Urza's Destiny was famously a transition point where the process was changing behind the scenes. There was an initial design team, but there was no development team. And in fact, Urza's Destiny happened when a whole process was changing and there was a rare inflection point where it was the only set since Arabian Nights to be effectively one man. Mark Rosewater had to jam Urza's Destiny while doing all of his other responsibilities. He had to make Urza's Destiny theorycraft, and I think he did an unbelievable job. Urza's Destiny is all concept. It is all design. It didn't have the full rigor of it didn't even have a development team. In fact, it was part of the impetus, like that whole block was during an era where they were like, we actually we should make a development team. And when they brought Randy on to be a power level guy, Hall of Famer Randy Buehler, he actually kind of just blew the doors out as soon as he walked in the room. Because like as soon as he got there, Invasion was deep and he made it better. They put him on the team and he actually did really good things for helping Invasion take some chances that turned out to be it was a good time and it was controversial in the eyes of some players because I know that some old school players didn't like some of the sensibilities of what Invasion was pushing or not.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, that was a popular sentiment among the people who are kind of one generation before me of like, this is stupid, this is dumbing down the game, where's the dark rituals, where are the draw sevens?
And instead, it's a lot of 2-for-1s. And if you like the like super low powered style of the old days, Invasion is much more powerful.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So Randy comes through and knocks it out of the box, and it just knocks it out of the park in Invasion block, including being co-lead of Apocalypse. And Odyssey is his first lead. He's a very ambitious, very dominant force in political dynamics and social corporate dynamics. So his meteoric rise, he's leading a set as his first individual lead after an unprecedented amount of utilization for a rookie. In his first year, the amount of utilization, just unheard of. And in a different way, where they didn't really have a development team the same way, and they made him head of the development team, but it wasn't even like a real thing at the time. So like they kind of invented final design for him.
Well, I mean, that's something that even if you have the concept of final design, what does it mean to be in a leadership position in final design? It can often be like a pretty complicated thing. Often final design can give the appearance of consensus building, or we vote and the majority gets their way. I think that's a deeply flawed process. But that notion of Obviously, everyone's giving their feedback and their perspective, but ultimately the buck stops with a particular person. They are responsible more or less for synthesizing the feedback and drawing conclusions from what other people are saying. That's something that even nowadays, not every development team functions that way, and it kind of starts here.
Oh, absolutely. I think Randy doesn't get enough credit. I mean, you can say what you will about a lot of different things of design choices or sensibilities or a number of other things, but one of the strengths that Randy was like just otherworldly at that made him such a good leader for Team CMU, he's very good at taking talent and making something bigger, at making a super intelligence out of a bunch of intelligences. Randy's a great dude to be a smart dude who likes to surround himself with people who are even better at certain areas and disciplines, and he can handle it. Randy's ability to make the group without it having to be the Randy show is very impressive. And I think that was part of the secret sauce. I do think that there's a certain amount of, if you just have that meteoric of a rise, sometimes you end up rising to the level of your own incompetence, right? And I don't mean that this is incompetent by any means. I just mean that there's a certain amount of, there are some things in Invasion, which he was on the team, that were so good, they're like, maybe more of this. And then they make him co-lead in Apocalypse, and they're like, this is incredible. How about even more of this? But sometimes it's not just we need even more of that. Sometimes it's also about that as a counterpoint to like the Bill Roses and Mark Rosewaters of the world and so on. And I think Odyssey is a little bit less of that. You know, it was the first set in a while to not have as much of that, where what if we let the spikes kind of drive a little bit more? What if we let the developers design a little bit more?
And it's an interesting thing when you're talking about sort of the contrast between design and development. There's a reason that most games kind of rotate lead designers in.
Oh, yeah.
You need a certain amount of, there's a lot of creative juice that goes into it. People need time to recharge their batteries. There's all these ancillary responsibilities that go along with being the design lead also, like interacting with creative and writing art descriptions, all this stuff. Some Magic sets have had the design lead do this, others haven't, but like this is kind of just true across games, generally speaking. The opposite is almost the case when you're talking about final design. You want there to be a level of continuity. That's really important for making
you don't want the volatility. You want it to evolve over time.
Right.
But you want it to evolve slower.
But if me and you and a third person take turns as final design lead, and I have very different sensibilities around burn spells, and you have very different sensibilities around card drawing, and designer 3 has very different sensibilities around fast mana, that is a recipe for disaster. When you got too many cooks in the kitchen and final design wise. So you want there to be a level of stabilization and kind of the same recurring team and the same leadership. And you can kind of swap things in and out, but there's a different responsibility there, the initial versus the final, in terms of how much of this is about vision and creativity versus how much about this is continuity, shared language, shared understanding, all of that. Most of the time where I've been in a position to be, as someone who's like frequently been basically the Randy Buehler on a project or close to that, someone who's synthesizing final design feedback, most of the time the next level up where I would get promoted, where that conversation goes to, is like, well, now you have direct reports. Now you're with the product manager drawing up a calendar for the schedule release. And it's like, are you sure this is what you want me to, like, this is not my strengths, right? But this is just sort of the evolution of going up, is you often end up in these positions where now you're taking on responsibilities that are kind of well outside the purview of how you got there in the first place.
The skills that go along with having a vision for architecting a Magic set or a metagame or something are not necessarily the same as what it is to manage a team of people developing a Magic set or a team of people deciding on the numbers. But you don't always know, because when you're happening, you're kind of just inventing a lot of this stuff on the fly. Maybe I'm a little more bullish on the set from the tones you're setting, but there's a lot to like about this.
There is a reason the set is beloved among my cohort.
Yes.
Like, it's not an accident. The same things that I'm going to critique about it 25 years later are things that, as a player at the time, as a person who was in a particular place with Magic, I loved about it. The flat power level, sort of the ticky-tacky resource management, decisions that were like right on the line, like game of inches involving discarding cards or blowing up your own lands. I don't think that's a recipe for a wide appeal, but for players of my era who were like playing in the Pro Tour at that time, this set is still like, we still get together and draft it. That is how beloved this is. So it does have certainly an audience. It's just not a particularly large one.
Man, a lot to say on this set, but what do we need to do to lay the groundwork here?
Well, we'll be back in a moment with the facts of Odyssey. Welcome back to the Resleevables Odyssey Edition. About to get into the facts, but first, a word from our sponsor of this segment of the show, Tales of Adventure. They've been with us since day one. If you want to just go to the best in the business for buying Magic singles, Magic Seal product, head over to toamagic.com. The first thing you're going to see a list of events where Tales of Adventure is going to be vending. So if you prefer to do your buy, sell, trade stuff in person, you can find which event they're going to be going to, and any large event in North America, you can almost be sure they will be there. They are the best, in my opinion. The only dealer I use at this point for Magic singles, Magic Seal product, and everything else related to it. As someone who plays a lot of formats like pre-modern, old school, legacy, vintage, those cards can obviously be pretty pricey. And if you're doing your browsing on a website and you see things like heavily played or lightly played, you don't necessarily know what that means or what the store's grading standard is. For their high end, Tales of Adventure individually scans every single card. You actually get to select the specific card and have confidence in what you're purchasing ahead of time. When you go to checkout, make sure you use promo code Resleevables for 5% off of all of your orders, and every order inside the United States is sent with free tracking and shipping. So make sure to go to Tales of Adventure for all your Magic needs. Eternal lives here. All right, some fact time. It is the first out of the Odyssey block. It is the 24th Magic expansion and was released on October 1st, 2001. The pre-release was the week before, September 22nd to the 23rd of 2001. The set symbol is the Mirari. Design, Mark Rosewater as the lead with Mike Donay, Richard Garfield, William Yakush, and Henry Stern. And then development, Randy Buehler, as mentioned before, lead with Mike Donay, Mike Elliott, William Yakush, and Henry Stern. Art direction by Dana Knudsen and Ron Spears. Odyssey was 350 cards, 110 rares, 110 uncommons, 110 commons, and 20 basic lands. This is still before the introduction of mythic rares. The core keywords and abilities of the set are Flashback and Threshold. We'll be getting into those more later. And the development codename was Argon. Odyssey was sold in a variety of ways. Standards of this time: 15 card booster packs with a rare, 3 uncommons, and 11 commons. You also have the tournament decks, which were essentially 3 booster packs slapped together in a box, along with some basic lands. You also have the theme decks. I will offer that this is a big step forward in theme deck development, in that all of them are pretty much either Threshold or Flashback decks. A lot of the pre-constructed decks, if you've been watching the series a long time, are kind of just a mismatch of stuff. And this time we've actually got 4 decks that speak to the thing. We have Liftoff, a blue-white control deck with a thresholded theme, with the rares of Cephalid Retainer, not great, and Mystic Crusader. Awesome. Good stuff there. Cephalid Looters, Mystic Zealots, you know.
I feel like you could do worse than Cephalid Retainer.
It's like maybe not the best, introductory player experience, but whatever.
There's a lot about Odyssey that's not the best introductory player experience.
We've got next up the 1-2 Punch, a red-green beatdown deck heavily featuring flashback cards. The rares in the deck, Nantuko Mentor and Seize the Day.
Kind of dope.
Yeah, kind of dope. Pressure Cooker, a red-black mid-range deck with a threshold theme. Rares here are Braid's Cabal Minion and Repentant Vampire. And then we have the Trounce-O-Matic, which is a blue-green thresholded theme deck.
Won the Pro Tour?
Yeah, sort of. Yeah,
yeah, a modified,
modified version of the Trounce-O-Matic. Shout out Ken Ho. The rares are Ivy Elemental and Stone Tongue Basilisk. Stone Tongue Basilisk, also the pre-release foil for this set, printed in Arabic.
Yeah.
So
I would have got that one right.
There you go. And of course, the Fat Pack's the greatest sealed product ever introduced. I really do appreciate that the theme decks are actually speaking to a thing. All 4 of them. They've done them in the past, where maybe 1 or 2 were, maybe there was a shadow deck and maybe there was a buyback deck. But to have all 4 of them, and these mechanics in particular, because they dovetail with each other so naturally, that playing with the decks gives you an inspiration for other things you could be doing, because a lot of the stuff that synergizes with one will naturally synergize with the other. So very cool collection of decks. That does it for the facts of Odyssey. We will be back in a moment with the mechanics. Welcome back to the Resleevables Odyssey Edition. We're here with the mechanics. We've got two big ones here. Flashback and Threshold. Flashback is an ability on spells in graveyards that allows you to pay a certain mana cost and exile them to do the same effect again. And then you have Threshold, which is basically
it's a threshold mechanic. When the criteria is met, the card has different functionality.
And it keys off of having at least 7 cards in your graveyard, and that's been the inspiration for a variety of mechanics, including Delirium.
Yeah, and it does play a little weird in this set, unfortunately. Well, I guess we'll get to that.
No. It's just talk about underselling it.
Yeah, it's one of those mechanics that it totally makes sense why you would pitch this. There are some difficulties in the actual, like the way the rubber hits the road that I don't think were properly addressed before shipping the set.
So let's start with Flashback, because that's the mechanic here with the most legs in terms of the history of Magic. Gets used over and over again. It is
great
actually,
mechanic, not at its best execution here.
No, I would say that this is, if you talk about evergreen keywords being a lot of the nuts and bolts creature combat stuff like trample and flying, that I put into a different tier of evergreen. If you take a step down from there and are like, what are the keywords that largely are evergreen, in that it would not surprise you to find a handful of these in any given set, even if it's not necessarily
it's like top 5 or top 10, right?
Yeah, it doesn't have to be only in a graveyard set, right? You can just plug this on card, something like cycling.
Plug and play.
Yeah, Flashback, I think, is very near the top of the list of keywords that came in after Alpha.
Better than cycling.
Yeah.
And I like cycling, but it's better than cycling.
So what are you, I think it's a million times better than cycling.
A million is a lot,
but I am a cycling hater.
Yeah.
So when you talk about the implementation in this set, not being ideal. So setting aside the fact that it's the drawing from the same well experience of you have 7 cards in your graveyard, one of them has a spell Flashback.
You could talk yourself into that's like,
right.
That's not necessarily a problem to me, other than I think that their development execution made it too samey. They have enough synergy, and I think there's enough space that, to me, it's not inherently offensive how samey they are.
So when you're talking about the implementation or execution of the set for Flashback not being ideal, setting aside the tension with Flashback at times, which, your mileage may vary. I can see this as being positive. It's interesting.
You see?
I do. What are your sort of critiques the next step down from there?
Well, to me personally, honestly, there's a higher step up, which is my larger critique is actually not the tension or anything like that. The real critique to me is that the onboard tricky nature of making the graveyard into a zone that is so impactful, so mandatory to be aware of, and yet there's an outrageous amount of stuff there. It is good that they made the symbol to make it a little easier to parse, so that when you're looking at somebody's big stack of cards in their graveyard, that you can like key in on which cards to like look at.
For those of you who are less familiar with Odyssey, they put a tombstone in the upper left-hand corner of the cards with Flashback. So if your graveyard was fanned out, you'd at least be a little clued in that some of these cards were live.
Yeah, but I think that the amount of the burden on people to know all of the cards in your opponent's graveyard and to keep track of them was very unwieldy. Mm-hmm. And I think that you could have mitigated this with the development side of, not making so much of the power going into blowout onboard tricks where somebody plays a card that blows somebody out and now it's sitting in the graveyard and it's going to blow somebody out in the future, where you have to like play around this all of the time,
Yeah, that is actually kind of obnoxious on the two fronts. Mm-hmm. Take a card like, let's say Beast Attack.
Yeah.
It's a pretty strong card by the standards of the time. There are basically 2 ways that this card becomes burdensome, and they unfortunately target 2 different demographics of players. One is, I forgot you had your Beast Attack there.
Yeah.
And now I get blown out a second time. Now,
Indefensible, too. There's nothing. I just threw my guy away.
I just threw my card away. There's nothing I can tell myself. There's the second way that it gets frustrating, which is for more advanced players, which is you've got your mana up. I can play around it, but you're under no obligation to play this until it actually is good for you or it's the thing you decide to do.
Well, and Beast Attack isn't even the worst of it because of how much Beast Attack is like worth playing a lot of the time. The worst of it is are all the cards like Sylvan Might.
Right, that's a much better example.
Where with Sylvan Might, it's sitting there. You don't ever use the Sylvan Might until it's good. But it's not good because they know you have the Sylvan Might. So it just sits there forever, making the game really complicated, and it's never worth doing unless you're going to win the game. So it just complicates things with a tension that never resolves, and it's just never worth doing, so you never do it.
Yeah, I mean, in some of those examples, for like Beast
Unless
Attack,
it's a blowout, you know.
Beast Attack is unfortunately, it's powerful enough and expensive enough that the Beast Attack holding pattern experience doesn't really come up very much. Like usually,
frequently there's something else to do.
You want to be, you want to flashback your Beast Attack at the end of the day, and we all move on with our lives. And then there, on the other side of it, is something like Chatter the Squirrel, which is 1, low impact, and 2, importantly, sorcery speed.
Yep.
So I guess I can get blown out by Chatter the Squirrel because you have something that sacrifices a creature for value, and I forgot it was there, and now the combat's different on your turn. But we're still kind of in the conceit of just like, this could have just been a card in your hand. Who knows, right? The Sylvan Might example is the perfect, I think, the representation of there's just this like ticky-tack exchange that's invisibly there, and all of our plays every single turn are warped around the presence of this card. And because both of our plays are warped around the presence of this card, it never gets played. And
right.
God forbid there's a second Sylvan Might with a different dimension to it.
Yeah, engulfing flames or something.
Right, someone else's graveyard. Yeah.
Because at least a card like Ancient Grudge, it's going to get its money one way or the other, and it doesn't hit everything. It's not complicating the existing things as much as there's a thing it interacts with.
It's also, that one is so clearly pointed for constructed play.
Absolutely.
And constructed's a very different animal when you're talking about this stuff.
And these kind of tricks are so different when it comes to creatures or not. Creatures have all these attributes, whereas most artifacts and enchantments, most of them are either on or they're off. They're either they're doing it or they're not, right? And then you get rid of them or you don't. The creatures, there's all this modification and contextualization of how they're lining up. So it becomes very complicated when you have cards that are doing things like granting trample or changing toughness,
Yeah.
at instant speed in ways that are priced to move that are, So I don't think that aspect of the set was executed as well as it could have been. I think they clearly made some intentional choices to try to make it better, and they did make it better than what you would naively come to. Like, I think that having the counterspell costs so much.
Yeah.
Stuff like that. They were clearly aware of some of these problems, and they were trying to do stuff about it.
Elephant Ambush is another 8 mana flashback. Like, it's not designed around the tension and the tracking of the flashback being a core part of why that card got played.
Yeah. And I think that they also did a good job of limiting some complexity in a couple other areas so as to make it so that you could focus on some areas that they wanted you to focus on. It's weird. It's one of those, was it well executed because it accomplished the goal well versus was it well executed as in this was a wise thing to execute? It gets a little muddy because I think that they cut out space that was more fun to think about in order to make it so that you would have more cycles to think about tracking your opponent's graveyard.
Okay, when we get to the cycles in a little bit, we are going to not be.
I didn't even mean that cycle, but yeah.
No, it works both ways. Trust me. It
does. All the way around.
So that gets us a threshold. Threshold is a mechanic that there's derivatives of it that have appeared over the years, and Delirium is probably kind of the go-to version of that gets cycled in more modern times.
So much better incentives.
Delirium?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
Get you to play the variety of card types.
And also people can engage with it in different ways.
Absolutely. And it's not so on, off, on, off, on. Like Threshold, it's weird when you have 7 and you flashback the card and you change it down, and it's very interesting. But the problem with Threshold here, I think, is, well, the one part that to me is actually offensive is the Tarmogoyf problem.
Okay.
Like, I think that what it is like to play a spell that does damage and then changes threshold, or what it is like to be engaged in combat and threshold changes attributes. It starts inviting strange questions about whether or not damage kills creatures, or if state-based, at least in the rules of the day, do state-based effects kill creatures? It's a little...
There's definitely some of that. I would suggest it's not exactly the Tarmogoyf problem in all instances.
No.
Because,
but the part that bothers me is a lot of versions of a little bit of the Tarmogoyf problem.
Yeah. So what I do appreciate about Threshold is that in contrast to all these critiques that you and I have of the execution of Flashback in the set, which is the onboard, not even onboard, in graveyard trickiness of you have a +2/+2 and I have a shock, and now like the game is just warped around this experience. Threshold is a little bit closer to like there's just a switch and it's turned on. And yes, maybe I have a way to exile the 7th card out of your graveyard. Maybe your 7th card is Flashback and there's some tension there. But for the most part, the way that it plays is you've turned it on.
Yep.
And maybe there's a moment in combat in the course of the game where you have 6 cards in your graveyard and you are attacking with some creatures that have Threshold. And that implies you have a way to get a card in your graveyard at instant speed. So now I'm thinking about, well, what could those cards be? Are you bluffing? Is that a possibility? Are you bluffing because if I eat anything, you get a Threshold after the fact? Anyway, so that's a possibility. But once we get through that moment of drama in the combat step, typically your things are on one from another. And now for the rest of the game, your Threshold cards just do what they say they do on them. There's no additional complexity beyond the in terms of managing it, the way that that both players had to manage a Flashback card. That's not really the case so much with Threshold, except in bizarre circumstances.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I agree. I saw a lot of novice gameplay that contributed to the I just threw my cards away experience.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of that in this set.
There is a ton of that in the set. And part of the reason there's a ton of it in the set is because there are a ton of cards where that is the entire purpose of them, is to allow you to throw away cards to get the Threshold. And I
think this set grossly overestimates how interesting of an ongoing battle it is to fight over whether or not your opponent's 7th card is in their graveyard.
But a huge issue I have with the Threshold designs in here are the number of them that's like, you've achieved Threshold. You would expect your card is better now. Maybe. There's a lot of Dirty Were-Rats and a lot of Otarian Juggernauts where it's like ambiguous if it's better or not. And the idea that like you and I both have to manage your 7th card has this outsized impact, and so does mine. And we're weighing it against cards that get 70% better and 30% weaker all over the place. That to me is sort of the...
It's not fair to say all over the place.
I don't know.
It's not all... Is it all over the place, or is it literally just black and some artifact that is like black and they're all versions of can't block?
No, you're right, because Blood Curdler's that too.
They're all versions of... Same with the Juggernaut. They're all versions of can't block. So it's not actually... I do think it's a little unfair to...
Sure. Yeah, that is...
Because it is... I mean, it's complicated, but it's 10 versions of the same thing.
Yeah. And lastly, something that I'll offer that I like about Threshold is there's a natural scaling element to it. If you look at... Kicker's probably the best example of, you have your Kavu Titan and you flood out a little bit or the game's gone on and now you have a 5-mana 5/5. Threshold actually kind of approaches it the opposite way, which is like your thing is just on.
But you are making progress towards it, and then your thing is on.
Right.
So you're still making progress, just like you're hitting your land drops is making progress towards it.
So I think of Werebear as sort of being the classic example of this, of like a 2-mana 4/4 taps for a green. That's a sick card. That's even with magic power creeping in a lot of ways over the last 10, 15 years. It's not a card that they would print. But you appreciate the Werebear on turn 2 for being a mana accelerant, and then on turn 5 or whatever, when your Threshold's on, it's way better than the average 2-mana creature is going to be. And so you get this natural, your cards get better.
Very satisfying design.
Yeah, your cards get better as the game progresses in a way that's, first of all, not super prescriptive. You might not have threshold, depending on what the circumstances are. And it's not just asking for mana, which is a lot of the way that typically those designs get over. So that does it for the mechanics. We will back here in a moment with the cycles of Odyssey. Welcome back to the Resleevables Odyssey Edition. We got some cycles, but first, a word from one of our sponsors, Bosch and Roll. That's Brian Koval streaming Eternal formats every day on the YouTube channel. And if you're looking to level up your game in formats like pre-modern, vintage, legacy, old school, 93, 94, Brian is a master of these formats. He's crushes in paper and online. Very entertaining streamer. And so if you're on YouTube watching this, make sure to subscribe to the channel Bosch and Roll. And check out Brian Koval if you're looking for some entertaining games or to level up your game in these Eternal formats. We are not short on cycles here, and I had to do some editing to kind of get down to the core of it. First thing that I want to talk about here is that this set is quite long on land cycles. Blows it out of the box compared to previous ones. We have the common sack lands. Lands that enter the battlefield tapped, can be tapped for an appropriate color of mana, and can be sacrificed for 1 mana of any color. Sea floor, debris, etc. Do you like stone running yourself to get to threshold at the expense of being able to flashback your spells?
Honestly, yes.
I do too.
Yeah, I don't think that's a fair framing. I think that this cycle does good work.
Okay.
I think that there's good... I would so much rather it be this way than the, an invasion block, the lands that make 2 mana.
Uh-huh.
I think there's something really cool about these. I think that they're very modest, and you get them very late, and they're very, they're not very good cards, but having access to be able to power up your splash, that's a real thing. Mm-hmm. And the ability, the way that it felt, for how modest they are, the way that it felt to be able to cash them in to power up your threshold, that's a real thing.
Yeah, this is one of those things where I really wish it was just the one.
See, I like there being
okay,
5.
you like the 5, yeah. And you can't, it's hard to do just the one because doing the one is archaeological dig from invasion. That's right. The enters untapped and tap for a colorless. 5 of these is, I felt as a competitive player at the time, the mana fixing in the format was so paltry that this enabling a splash was way less of the range than would I be willing to play a land that enters the battlefield tapped with the upside of I can get rid of it any time later on in the game.
Most of the power was that I can get rid of it.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I think that there's a little bit of a little bit of the problem is the fixing not being available for actually fixing. Mm-hmm. And so you want too much of this, when in reality, this is like ostensibly fixing that's hiding that it's so overtly, that it's mechanically so much I can just bin my land.
Yeah. That gets us to the uncommon lands. These are lands that have a lot of history and competitive play. The threshold lands, these are all lands that enter the battlefield untapped. They tap for a particular color of mana and you pay 1 life. And at threshold, you can pay 1 mana of the appropriate color and sacrifice it for an output. Centaur Glade, Nomad Stadium, Cephalid Coliseum, Barbarian Ring, and Cabal Pit.
So I like a lot of these. The white one is indefensible.
The white one is really rough.
It's so deeply offensive. It's so unappealing. It's not that there isn't something you could do that's interesting, and I'm not saying that nobody's ever played it and all that, I'm just saying that recipe is not a good recipe.
No.
That's not a good recipe. But I think that this cycle, for the most part, landed in a really good spot.
Me too.
And I think it's really nice for them to balance it around a little bit more, not just making it it's a little bit different of a mix than had ever been gone on there. It's not just tapped and it's not just option for paying life. Having a cycle of City of Brasses of these made for some really good gameplay with how good of options these were, like Barbarian Ring. Cabal Pit's a little samey, but I think Centaur Glade, the Cephalid Coliseum, and the Barbarian Ring ended up in a really good spot, and I think the Cabal Pit ended up in a fine enough spot.
See, I think that Cephalid Coliseum to me is closer to Nomad Stadium than the other ones.
Oh,
which is I've already opted in for the request of getting the threshold, and this is now more. Nomad Stadium's the worst by far, but in terms of just like, this is just, I'm not getting a different dimension. This is just the same thing I had before.
So part of I do have multiple problems with Cephalid Coliseum. I don't mean like in a really good spot for this is like good for the healthy game. I meant like in terms of getting them over without. My issue with Cephalid Coliseum is that I think it's not a great uncommon.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that Cephalid Coliseum exacerbates problems with this set's development, with where things are balanced around. I think that if you're going to have some amount of this stuff, though, I do think that Cephalid Coliseum adds multiple dimensions compared to what any of the other many, many versions of the Cephalid Coliseum. They've made a lot of that in this set. There's a lot. And Cephalid Coliseum does add a couple dimensions where what it means to be filtering after you've already met threshold does change the equation a little bit regarding which cards does it work well with. And I do think that it's a little fancy, but there's a little bit of I think you got to have a little bit of tolerance for hiding some of the fanciness stuff of what's going on with those. So I don't know. I don't think Cephalid Coliseum would be as big of an issue if other issues weren't as big of an issue.
These are very mechanical designs, right? Very nuts and boltsy. They're a little fancy, but what's being conveyed here story-wise, all 5 of the names and pieces of art look like a place for one-on-one combat.
Right.
And that really sells pay 1 life as the development knob rather than enter the battlefield tapped or anything else.
Sort of. It's still confusing what's happening with Nomad Stadium.
I think that you should have a different output on Nomad Stadium. But that aside, this is one of those things that I kind of come back to when I'm working on games, like this cycle in particular, of sometimes you just have some nuts and bolts stuff, and sometimes you have to put a cost on things because things need a cost.
Yeah.
Like these are just better than basic lands otherwise, so you got to take a point of damage or whatever. How can we turn these from something that's like very nuts and boltsy into a story being told, or at least a tone being conveyed? And these are excellent at doing that. So I appreciate them on that front a lot. Lastly, we get to the rare filter-ish lands. These are all lands that you can tap it and a colorless to make A and B of an allied color pairing, Skyclad Expanse,
and
etc.
famously, you can't just tap for a colorless.
Well, I don't know about famously, because I saw a lot of people at my store discover it in real time. So maybe subtly famous is more appropriate. I don't know. I do appreciate that these are like playable dual lands for the standards of the time. But balancing them around, if you draw 2, you have no mana, is not where I would start.
I do really like that they also they're both untapped, but also not supporting 1-drops. I just think that the not having the tap for a colorless.
It's so bad.
Because you got to be able to let the people play 2. And I think it's so much of a nightmare if somebody ever tries to play 3 colors and they have to use multiple of these. Too bad.
And people had to do stuff like that because that was the standards of the mana fixing at the time.
Yep.
So yeah, among, in my opinion, among the worst cycle of dual lands ever made.
Really?
I think so. Yeah. I think even if you go to the Tempest ones, like the ETB tapped,
depletion
lands or whatever.
What about the depletion lands?
Depletion lands are worse. I think these are not as bad as because the Tempest ones, the ETB tap pain lands, super bad, super unappealing. They're at least transparent. They're piggybacking 2 phrases you've seen on lands before, and here it is, and you can play it or not, depending on what you value. I think these secretly not making mana, and that being the development knob, is is unacceptable. Even lava tubes and Velt are like, they suck and they're not fun to play with. But again, nothing is being hidden from you. They're pretty transparent. These are subtly ruinous. Like I've seen people keep 7-card hands with 2 of these and no other lands.
Yeah.
And I've never seen someone do something with Caldera Lake or Velt that can be compared to that.
That's fair.
Moving along, this is a very loose definition of cycle, but for people who were there at the time drafting the set, there's a lot of fondness for these, and I have a pretty, what I believe to be a pretty entertaining story around these. The dogs. It's a cycle of 2/2 for 2s, creature type hounds of wildly different power levels and outputs. Patrol Hound, Wild Mongrel, Phantom Whelp, Mad Dog, and Filthy Cur.
Yeah, it's a love letter to Eric Lauer. Eric Lauer famously loves dogs a lot. I mean, a lot of people do, but Eric Lauer loves dogs a lot. And when Randy went to go work for Wizards and Team CMU got wound down in that iteration, and he asked Eric Lauer, you know, like, what do you want to see in Magic? And Eric said, dogs. More dogs.
Now that you mention it, it's pretty light on dogs leading up to this moment.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I had not thought of that.
Yeah.
So, a couple of things. There's just been a lot of charming things that have come up in competitive Magic over the years involving these cards. One is the curve in draft of Filthy Cur Seaton's Desire never fails to entertain. Gerard Fabiano, in a New Jersey Magic player, Pro Tour, Sunday competitor, famously invented the Phantom Whelp game, which is if you and I are playing a game where our deck is 40 cards or 60, whatever, and the only cards we're allowed to play are islands and Phantom Whelps. What is the correct number of islands and Phantom Whelps to play? So you're theory crafting that experience. And then, of course, Wild Mongrel. A lot of stories surrounding this one. Very powerful card, Pro Tour winning card, all that. I played in a Odyssey block constructed PTQ up at Neutral Ground. And I was playing Blue-Green Madness, which is kind of like the default best deck of the time. Part of the reason that Blue-Green Madness was the popular one is because you had Aquamoeba. That's in Torment. We'll get to that one later. But you had Wild Mongrel, and then Aquamoeba was a serviceable Madness outlet 5 through 8, and you didn't really have anything else at 2 in the other colors that could accommodate this. And again, fast forwarding a little bit, when you get to Torment, Red has some, for the standards of the time, awesome Madness cards in Fiery Temper and Violent Outburst. Most of the Madness... Violent Eruption, sorry. Most of the Madness decks were blue-green, but some people did play red-green Madness. Now, downside of red-green Madness is you only got your Wild Mongrels. That's it. You don't draw your Wild Mongrels. Maybe you have Patchwork Gnomes as your other additional enablers, but otherwise you're kind of out of luck. The upshot of this deck is that if you do have your Wild Mongrel, you are beating the brakes off of everyone. No one can hang with you because you have all the Blue-Green Madness stuff and the red cards, which in my opinion were actually stronger than the green cards as pure Madness outputs. You just didn't have the enablers.
Yeah.
So I'm playing a PTQ in Neutral Ground and I get paired against someone. And probably like, I'm guessing the 2-1 or 3-1 bracket. My opponent is playing red-green Madness. And you already know how this goes. They win the roll. Games 1 and 3, they have a turn 2 Mongrel and destroy me. Game 2, I don't think they didn't have Mongrel on 2. I don't think they played a card. But what made my opponent particularly charming in this tournament was both games 1 and 3, they play a Mongrel on 2. I can't do anything about it. I play my own Mongrel or Aquamoeba, whatever. And I say go, and my opponent untaps and plays a land, and then starts singing the chorus to Bad, Bad Leroy Brown, and is going like, bad, bad Leroy Brown, and like just killing all of my creatures and playing 8 mana worth of stuff for free and having the time of his life. And at the end of that, I was, a bad PTQ spike, and I just lost this bad deck or whatever. And that was the first time I can remember losing under those conditions where I was like, I'm glad that guy had it. That was actually kind of hilarious. So yeah, the dogs, that's a big cycle for, again, players of our
2/2s for 2 that each have more text.
We have the bursts. Not the first time. that we've seen this sort of design space, but the first time it's built out into a cycle.
Well, and to have modifiers that are not it, like Diligent Farmhand
and
that powers up Muscle Burst.
Partick Fire Cat.
The Partick Fire Cat powering up the Flame Burst.
Yeah, so it's a cycle of spells that do a thing and then an additional something for each card with that name in the graveyard. Muscle Burst, Flame Burst, Life Burst, Aether Burst, and Mind Burst. Very sweet cycle of cards no matter what. I cannot, however, forgive the name Life Burst. When it says, like, if the red one was called Damage Burst, that would be like, you gotta try a little bit harder. The fact that Life Burst actually has the word life in the text box is, I still can't get over that one. Also, I'm sure you have a much deeper well than I do of like cards where you're just, if the circumstances were ever right, if the enablers were there, no one's ever played this one really, but I think like keep an eye out for this one just in case things go a certain way. And one of my shortlist cards is Mind Burst. Like I think about intuition for Mind Burst a lot. I think about just milling yourself over and you have 4 Mind Bursts in your deck and who knows where that, because you only need to get the 1 in the graveyard and then you're really cooking. 2-mana Mind Rot is nice. If you're doing anything more than that, it's like, now we're really talking. I haven't been able to figure it out. I don't know if the enablers are always going to be there, but you know, if you're a deck builder,
I think you're the mark.
If you're a deck builder, everyone's got a handful of cards like that, and Mind Burst is one of mine.
No, in Mind Burst, out of this cycle, Mind Burst is the 5th most likely for me to play. Obviously, Flame Burst is kind of just like pretty straightforward. You know, you
think you're more likely to play Muscle Burst than Mind Burst?
Oh yeah, unquestionably.
Oh, okay. All right.
So, Aether Burst is busted.
Yeah, busted.
Aether Burst is bananas. Life Burst is intense. The amount of life that could be gained from a Life Burst is weird.
Yeah.
So that's a whole separate one, but it's got a purpose because that is an intense amount of scaling.
16? Yeah, that's a pretty intense one.
Like, the first one is like already priced to move if that's what you're in the market for the standards of the day. The second one is redonkulous, and then it starts getting weird.
Yes.
Like, what are we
doing here? Yeah, exactly.
Muscle Burst is legit. Muscle Burst isn't just like a trick. It's Diligent Farmhand helping it scale is a thing.
So good.
I know, it's so good. You can make Muscle Burst into an attractive card by itself or with modifying it more. Mind Burst to me is so transparently a gimmick to try to trap people who don't understand that a 2-mana Mind Rot isn't good, and you haven't made up for the 2 mana you spent funeral charming them the first time.
So first of all, that's not true.
And this is a horrendous world to Mind Rot your opponent.
Oh,
it's a horrible world.
That is.
It's horrible.
Well,
so I think the Mind Burst is a really smart design because this is, it's not only at that brilliant edge of looking attractive despite being, it's the bad ways, but it's so bad and yet looks like it. You want to believe this one is definitely reward hacking your brain.
So first of all, I disagree on 2-mana Mind Rot. That is sick. I do agree this is a particularly bad time to be trying to Mind Rot someone. No disagreement there. We have the rites. This is a cycle of commons where you can discard any number of cards in your hand. You take this.
You should be ashamed of yourselves. Okay. So this cycle of cards, this common cycle of cards is essentially multi-kicker, discard a card to make the effect scale. But the part of the problem you see is that they don't do anything. You have to discard a card to get it going.
Yeah, you got to mean it.
And then they're balanced around that.
Yeah.
Which then creates horrendous scaling things. Like, for instance, you're like, well, this sounds like really weak. Well, imagine if you made the effect scale multiplicatively and made the thing cheap. Like, rites of initiation? I don't think that's a smart move. I don't think that's a good bet. Discard, I definitely thought about the, like, what do I need to do to kill my opponent on the second turn with this kind of card type stuff. But, like, they're not good gameplay. The idea of I'm going to mind twist myself to power up my miscalculation, embarrassing.
Well, it's even worse. Rites of Initiation is how I was introduced to hold priority, because there is the falter where you need threshold to falter. Yes. So what you do is you cast it, hold priority, Rites of Initiation away your whole hand. Theoretically, you're at threshold down. Everything has +4/+0 and is unblockable for the rest of the turn. Setting this up involves basically not playing cards for multiple turns and just hoping that this sequence at 4 mana is good enough. It frequently was. I thought the one that seemed like the best to me in draft is sort of like, could you just play this in a deck?
Green one?
The green one.
Of course.
The green one was, you have threshold now, which is something green really valued, and your deck is so thinned out of lands.
Yeah.
Like,
green one's a fine design.
Yeah, the green one, like, people I think constantly, like, regularly overrate, like, middle tier players. Like, how valuable is it to thin your deck with, like, one fetch land or whatever? Rites of Spring is, your deck is as thin as it's going to get.
And it was fun to feel like when you're flooded and you got like 4 land in your hand, the feeling of discarding 4 of them and getting 4 more.
Yeah.
But now your deck, you go like, I know I'm drawing good stuff now, and I'm most of the way up on threshold because there's this card, those 4, that's 5. I'm already like, that was a sweet design. And you normally don't play it, but it's sweet when you do, and you loved when other people did, and it still did what they wanted.
Yeah.
That was a nice one. I do like that design. I think you could just do that card though.
Rites of Spring, yeah, it does not necessitate a cycle. Rites of Spring is...
The white one, though, dude. What the hell?
I know. So, well, the black one is also like, what the hell?
Like, what are we even doing here?
Right. Rites of Spring is probably top of the list of the set of whenever I had it and played it, I felt like I'm 100% going to lose. And when my opponent had it and played it, I felt I'm 100% going to lose. It was never good for me, always insane.
Oh, no. So, yeah, to me, I felt like I was going to win both ways. Okay. I almost never Rites of Spring, so if I ever Rites of Spring, you know you're dead.
Yeah.
And then when my opponents would Rites of Spring, which would happen a ton, they're just down a card.
All right, next cycle, we have the Shrines. These are rare enchantments that have an out.
What the fuck? What is going on?
They
keep making shrines. By the way, have these all been retconned to actually be shrines now?
I did not look.
I feel like they should be.
They should be. You're probably right. I'm going to go take a look.
I'm pulling it up right now. But so talk through the cycle, though.
All right. So you got a cycle of enchantments that have a scaling output whenever you play a spell based on the number of cards in your graveyard with the same name as the spell you are casting.
They have not been errated
really,
to be shrines.
That's shocking.
I have a new cause.
The Dwarven Shrine randomly is also 2x, where these are also just X.
And they work off both players.
I did not know that.
Both ways.
I didn't know that.
So it's not just...
Hold on, I'm piggybacking off of you, or this is an enchant world where we're each doing this to each other now?
We're each piggybacking off each other.
Oh my God. I did not know that.
So for instance, with Aven Shrine, when my Aven Shrine makes it so that when either one of us plays a card, that player gains an amount of life equal to the sum of all the named.
Oh my God. I mean, the Savage Shrine is an all-time terrible design, which is, fortunately, this is one good thing about the evolution of Magic into being, as far as paper goes, predominantly played in Commander. There's a sea of designs from Odyssey that are horrible that really don't apply because you're playing Singleton, and so the cards don't work. But these shrines this is a really rough cycle of cards.
The incentives of this, there's different ways where you're like, oh, is the incentive to play with more copies of the same name, less copies of the same name? This execution of we both care and count the sum, it creates the incentive of we should probably just get a job or go to school.
Right.
Why are we doing this? Anyway, sorry.
the spheres. This is a cycle of white enchantments that are sort of derivative / inspired by the circle protections. Prevent the first 2 damage that would be dealt to you by a source of the appropriate color, sphere of law, etc. For the sensibilities of the time and what these are, I am actually kind of fond of these compared to circles. They're so much better design.
So first of all, being uncommon instead of common,
yeah,
that's a real smart way to do it, right?
Mm-hmm.
But also, I think that the incentives, I don't need to spend all the mana, but we're just reducing, but there's still incentive to keep making progress forward. And the fact that they're not just preventing all the damage, it's just to you, so combat doesn't become messed up.
Yeah.
So I do, that said, 5.
Okay, so yeah, I clearly pick a color and that's it would be...
Well, okay, so for sure you could talk me into 2, the black and the red one.
Sure.
Right? Like, why not? Right.
Yeah.
Second, if you just spaced them out a little, because like, isn't there a reason to do the green and white one in Judgment or something? Or
yeah. Torment, yeah.
Something?
Yeah.
So like, I feel like you could have spaced them out and I would have had a little bit more of an appetite for them. They do play better than COPs.
So much better. There are a number of things I like about this compared to the circles. Even with circle red, right? That's the classic experience. I'm playing a mono red deck. Chapin plays circle red. I'm in really bad shape. This is known to both of us. However, what is my way to play around this or try to get through it is hopefully I have a creature or 2 and I'm just building up spells and maybe I can get to the game to a point where I can actually overwhelm all the mana that he has left up. It's unlikely to happen, but that's my best route. Maybe you can do a little bit of you can sort of like try to play around the edges of, well, I've got, he's got 2 mana up in this spot and I've got 6 cards in my hand. If I Lava Spike here, is he going to use the circle? By casting the Lava Spike, I'm certainly implying that I can follow up with better, and maybe he'll say, okay, I'll take it, and then I say, go. But the total sum of all of this stuff is you have no incentive to be spending mana, right? Like
usually not.
Usually not, sometimes, but usually it's like your spot can only get better as the game goes and you make more land drops. And I certainly have no incentive to cast my burn spells. So we're just in this like terrible holding pattern where maybe I can blow up enough of his lands or he stalls on lands, and that's my way to get around this. The spheres don't do that. It's 4 mana too, so it's like deferring the thing a little bit.
And if you ever destroy the sphere, you kind of got ahead on mana too.
Yeah. And critically, as you alluded to, Shivan Dragon is good against Sphere of Law in a way that is not true of Circle of Protection Red. And if you're going to push back on anyone with these kind of, I know this is going to be maybe sound odd coming from me, given my predilections as a competitive player, it's actually not the worst thing to dunk all over 40 Lava Spike person. That's a good thing to be pushing back on. And the sphere does that so much more effectively than it does shutting out Ball Lightnings and Shivan Dragons and whatever else.
Yeah, even just a 3/3 or a 4/4 still makes progress in a way that feels different than all the pups.
So we're going to round this out with 2 more cycles. They are cycles of creatures. We have the uncommon Atogs. These are a cycle of A-B colorless creatures that are all 1/2s that all have various ways of pumping themselves. And notably that each of the colors in the Atogs share the same input for pumping. So we have most famously, of course, Psychotog, and then Thaumatog, Phanatog, Oratog, and Lithatog.
How do you feel about this actual cycle? About there being a cycle, and 2, about this cycle, this execution. Because remember, there was a mega cycle. So more of the context you need to know. Atog came out in Antiquities. Foratog came out in Mirage. Chronotog came out in Visions. Necrotog was in Weatherlight. And Oratog came out in Tempest. So there was the super cycle gradually that was beloved. Here, they just blow it out of the water immediately, making the 2-color Atogs and then actually giving you a Togatog on top of it. What do you think about the Atogs sharing what it is they're eating?
I don't love it.
I don't love it either.
I also don't like balancing these around that they pump for 0 mana.
Right. But even if you're gonna, because like Foratog did it without pumping for 0 mana, you can do it. You don't have to make it. But I don't think this is a fun mix of things to pump around for 0 mana. And I think that the amount, it really looks like, I mean, so setting aside that Psychotog is like a problem.
Yeah.
Where it's like 2 problematic things that become more problematic together.
At least 2.
Well, both of the scaling vectors are problems and exacerbate each other. It's like a warning sign. It's like if you had these 2 separate things, you'd be like, well, isn't that a risk, a problem because of them combining? Well, what if we just put them on the same card?
Right. At a really high power level.
But I think that they're very tedious and cumbersome, and too much of them is about the game is like, I'm going to kill you, or it's not interesting.
Yeah.
And I think that's not cool. I think that it would have been more cool if it was more situationally contextual what we're doing, but also the burden of 0 mana. There's a lot of Ravager experience going on, and the amount of games between even like high-level players where we don't even know who really won. You know, like famously Jeff Cunningham and Gabe Walls ended up at a Pro Tour. In the final turn, Gabe pumps all the way. Jeff thinks he can only win, like Jeff Cunningham can only survive, or thinks Gabe can only win if he has a key card. Jeff says, do you have the whatever? Gabe's like, no. But from Gabe's perspective, it's just obvious. I have enough cards. And he just thought he was asking because he's like, well, you could have done it earlier, or what was I playing around? But from Gabe's perspective, there's just enough cards, you're dead. And from Fedge's perspective, it's you're short. You're 1 card short.
Yeah.
But they both pack up their cards and then went to sign match slip.
Both signed 2-1.
And they both like, wait, what? And they ended up getting a draw.
That's crazy.
They both to the death were like, no, it's definitely 100%. It was, and what are you going to do? If you're the judge, what can you do?
Yeah.
Because neither one of them, they didn't have an agreement. It was it was a clear failure to agree on reality. But part of that is that when you make these really tedious things where it's just implied that I'm going to use 40 triggers, it gets messy.
Also, the black ability being exiled 2 cards out of the graveyard in this set in particular is just such the wrong way, in my opinion, to try to get something over.
See, I think you could do that in a really interesting way if it was like 3 cards and sorcery speed and gated for mana.
Yeah, something.
Because I think that if you had a big output, but you have to pay a B and exile 3 cards, then it's like a real limit to how much can I really do this. Mm-hmm. But if I fill my graveyard, I could do it more. But that's a totally different design, obviously, than a 0 mana exile 2, where it's like, I'm just going to do 10 extra,
Okay, so here's for those of you who were not playing Standard at the time of Psychotog, this thing can pump as much as you can pump it for 0 mana instant speed, right? So,
well, no, I can pump it for 50% more than that.
Oh, no. So there was the shorthand math for Psychotog, which was 1.5A plus 0.5B, where A is cards in hand and B is cards in graveyard, because every card in your hand is both +1 for discarding and also gets you halfway there to removing 2 cards from your graveyard.
Interesting.
So far, so good, right? Now, obviously, your opponent could have a Polluted Delta or, who knows. But like at a baseline, we're only talking about, middle school algebra to start processing how much damage is this thing going to do. Unfortunately, this was also in a standard format with things like Factor Fiction. Factor Fiction is an especially tedious thing to try to calculate with a Psychotog. Because I guess it bears out to it's 5.5. Well, no, 6.
No, but it depends, because you can make the piles different.
Well, your opponent, like if I have Psychotog and I FOF, my opponent is for sure going to split 3-2 if they're worried about, because they can't give me 4 or 5 cards.
Right, but in the case where it's not lethal.
Oh, sure. Yeah.
Do you see what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, it's not just linear that you always automatically want to take the 2 cards.
And I do think that you're like calling out sorcery speed, invest mana, make the output whatever you want. But a lot of
there's a lot. I specifically don't think you want to make it whatever you want, because I think what you want is some incentive to make progress in the game, not just kill people.
Yeah.
And I think that the output of it's all big stats, and it's, first of all, it's boring when they're all that and they're all lethal and they're, but second, what's your incentive to just do this incrementally?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, if the output was something like sorcery speed, pay a mana and exile some number of cards, whatever, this gets +1/+1 and an Ophidian trigger this turn.
Well, even if it was like +3/+3 and lifelink.
Sure. Yeah.
If you pay a B and exile 3 cards.
Yeah.
Whatever you want, make it whatever, the numbers you want, but there's something dynamic to gaining a keyword in stats because then you aren't incented to just do it all at once.
Yeah.
You want to piecemeal it a little because you're getting value.
Yeah, the Seeker of the Way experience, right? That's like the classic.
Yeah.
There are incentives to load up.
Beautiful
and
design.
There's also incentives to try to...
Masterpiece.
Yeah, masterpiece.
It's like, oh, what if you discarded your entire hand to kill people? I guess I would kill them. What if you could destroy all of your own land to kill people? I guess I would kill them.
What if you paid this outrageous seeming cost to have the potential to kill your opponent? And it's like, well, it sounds like I'd either kill him or not cast the card. In another event, this is not that interesting. And then last cycle I want to get to here are the Vores, the rare cycle of creatures that all scale and grow based on a particular card type being in your graveyard. This is obviously kind of pulled from Lurgwife, and now there's a cycle of them. We got Contivore, Terravore, Cognivore, Magnivore, and Mortivore. Very cool cycle of cards.
Definitely. And they landed in a real good spot.
They did.
Like it's really cool, the range that they explore from everything from Magnivore to Cognivore. The amount that they did with this, I think that this is just, they executed the cycle very well.
I think 4 of the 5 of these were cool constructed game pieces at various points. Terravore's enabled all sorts of decks over the years as a pre-modern staple. Cognivore, you have...
I like Terravore having trample, too.
Yeah,
in terms of, I think that's...
Get it over with. Cognivore was a feature in Justin Gary's winning Pro Tour Houston Oath of Druids deck. Magnivore was a standard staple around... Maybe not the most fun collection of cards,
but if you're gonna, it actually added some interaction points and decision points that made it so that it's like they're doing less bad of things because of Magnivore.
Exactly, and Mortivore had a little bit of burn as like a sideboard card. And
it's got some play to it.
Yeah, very sweet cycle of cards, and this is something I do think the set could have used more of. Is just this is buying into the conceit.
Yeah.
Of you care about your graveyard.
It's not so ham-fisted. It just lines up well with the conceit.
Exactly. Very sweet cycle.
There's another cycle, though, that I think is just very iconic that we would be remiss to not talk about. The Enchant Land cycle. There's a cycle of uncommon enchant lands that each grant an ability to a land. There's Caustic Tar, Squirrel Nest, Chamber of Manipulation, the white one,
it lets you sacrifice it. It turns your land into Diamond Valley.
And then the red one, Steam Vines, you put it on your opponent's land and then it's like it's like a kudzu. But what'd you think of the cycle, man?
It's a little bit odd, particularly because the cycle is not super tight. You have some that are discarding and some that are not. They don't really speak to anything related to Threshold and Flashback.
Right.
When they were powerful, they were quite repetitive. I mean, they certainly gave some personality and shape to Limited at times. Caustic Tar was, again, that's one of those, if you were around at the time and played a lot of Limited, that's a card name you can say to someone of my era and you'll get a reaction of like, remember that one, for and against. So yeah, it's a very odd collection of stuff, but I can at least appreciate there's some level of it's a different thing and kind of innocuous.
I do appreciate that aspect of it. I think that there's a couple things weird about it outside of just, it is a weird way to be loosey-goosey with the cycle where the red one doesn't give an ability and 2 of them require discarding, 2 don't.
And arguably, Caustic Tar of a design that would require discarding cards, it's kind of an odd one to have it not.
I do think that Caustic Tar and Squirrel Nest could just be cards on their own.
Yes.
I think the Chamber of Manipulation plays very poorly. I think the Chamber of Manipulation was not a wise card to make like this.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the white one, I guess you could do this, but that's a really lame one to have to balance that way.
Yeah.
So I would have rather just Squirrel Nest and Caustic Tar been their own thing.
Sure. Yeah.
It becomes a weird thing to be a cycle.
Yes.
Kind of implies something that isn't true.
Anything else you want to go over cycles wise?
Yeah. Do you consider it a cycle? The Gravedigger, Oromancer, 2/2s that regrow the thing.
Cartographer, Oromancer, Scrivener, Anarchist, and Gravedigger. I think these made Limited measurably worse the red, blue, black ones. The green and white ones were pretty innocent. They didn't happen very often. If you were doing it, you had to really mean it. The amount that, first of all, again, we're in the world where creatures suck compared to nowadays. It's not even close. And so your 2/2 for 4 or your 2/2 for 5 was actually not costing you very much in tempo. And the amount that Scrivener is looping removal, Anarchist is getting back removal, and Gravedigger is setting up some sort of, if not a full loop of doing this, at least some very attrition-y card advantage engine. I think they, like I said, I think they made the limited format worse. I understand wanting to do them given the structure of the set. That totally makes sense. Oromancer and Cartographer were fun and innocuous, and you had to try pretty damn hard to have them amount to very much.
I think that having a bunch of 2/2s and 3/3s doesn't necessarily mean that the complexity is going to go down, like that things are going to attrition.
Mm-hmm.
I think that it is interesting, quote unquote, these things with Flashback and with Graveyard Hate. I don't mind these cards. But I don't know enough about what it would take to get the format to a spot that I like better. I could imagine very easily it being the case that if we were to start developing this into a format that I like more, that these would eventually get in the way. So your intuition about them making the format worse might be especially salient if we tried to make the format better.
Sure, yeah. That'll do it for the cycles. We'll be back here in a moment with the bangers of Odyssey. All right, folks, it's bangers time. There's so many to go over, especially, again, if you were drafting the set competitively. There's so much meat on the bone for, like, just Halberdier. You know what I mean? What a card. So I want to start off with a banger for you, because I think this is like something this is like actually a great design and something that the set is missing a lot of. I want to give a shout out to Dwarven Strike Force. That to me is a banger. Red and 4 colors for 4/3. You can discard a card at random from your hand to give the Strike Force first strike and haste until end of turn. So can I give you some why this is a banger to me? This actually looks like a Magic card. So many are in the like Crozan Archer space of like, I'm spending a green and discarding a card to give my thing +2 this
Why would
turn?
I do this?
Why would I ever do this?
There's a lot of versions of the OUC. It's surprisingly playable in this world. Versus this is just a card where it's like, yeah, sometimes I want to just get them.
So what I love about this is it's obvious to anyone why you would want to just do it the first time. It's like you hit for 4 with first strike. Okay, sure. I could totally see wanting to discard a card for that. You still have some incentive to spread it out, because first strike is valuable on following turns. So even if the haste is really front loaded, there's still some incentive to do the thing, whatever. Also, random as the discard, I think, is a really important piece of this because of the.
Really?
I do.
Okay.
There's a little bit of a red. I think Minotaur Explorer is another random discard thing that we have.
Bolduvian Horde.
Yeah. Well, just in this set specifically.
That doesn't mean it's good.
Because this is ungated 0 mana, pitch your hand for threshold considerations. I actually like that it's balanced in such a way that it's not deterministic that you just get to do the thing. So if you have a threshold thing on the table that you want to enable, you know for sure that you can do it, but you can't just sandbag the perfect hand in the aftermath
your
of
fiery temper and your violent outburst.
Right. You actually have to like commit to it and not be sure what the outcome is going to be. But you can do it for 0 if you want to do it, but you're spewing off the ability to give this thing first strike in subsequent turns when a 4-power first striker is really above curve for the time. There's so many, again, the Crozan Archer, Dirty, Were-Rat stuff that I'm critical of as like, this is so unappealing, why would I want to do this? And the Strike Force is actually, it answers all the questions and also mindfully backstops against some of the potential problems of letting someone do this.
That's reasonable. I think you sold me on this specific design being random.
Yeah.
I think it's nice to not have them all be random.
Totally.
In red. Like, I don't think you want to make it defined where red is like making you discard cards at random and it's part of its texture. But I do think it plays better on this one design.
All right, I want to get your thoughts on the following design. Moment's Peace.
Moment's Peace, it's not that it's horrible that you would think of this. It's a totally reasonable idea for somebody to have. And you get it. It's like there's an emotional experience. If you're thinking about what it's like to be the person with Moment's Peace, it is stuff that you would want. It's easy to understand why you wouldn't be thinking about the difference of how like Constant Mists is one of the worst designs, and Moment's Peace is actually more like Constant Mists than most cards. Like almost nothing is as much like Constant Mists as Moment's Peace is, you know?
I think Moment's Peace is actually somehow worse.
Yeah, but I'm saying, yes, and Moment's Peace is very powerful and very unassuming. There's a little bit of too much indulgence in this. So this set is going for there's different stuff that's good. And they do a pretty great job, I think, actually, of making some stuff good that isn't the stuff that's always good. But it's also, there's a little bit too much of the Necropotence is good instead of Baneslayer Angel experience.
Not exactly a Baneslayer Angel, but I do want to highlight, I think, one of the sweeter designs in the set, Haunting Echoes.
100%.
Banger.
Yeah.
Certified, like, the first time seeing it and being like, this can't be possible, and then having the experience of, it is possible, and unlike every other time they've done this to me, it's not dog shit either. It's actually got some purpose.
And it's actually good without being busted.
Yes.
And it goes after the right people.
Yeah.
It's so masterpiece.
Masterpiece.
And a hard masterpiece to get to. Some of the home runs in this set, it's like, that. I think that people might not realize how much that Vores cycle doesn't build itself.
No.
That is a finely balanced, construction that is impressive to me.
Obviously, can't talk about Haunting Echoes without talking about Traumatize. Another one of this is, I think, quite a bit weaker than Haunting Echoes. But
definitely, but it's so appealing of a design. This is such a brilliant design, and the combo of Traumatize, Haunting Echoes is so evocative and so... it is actually... like, it's the kind of combo that you imagine card games should have. And there's some combos where it's like, okay, is Necropotence Ivory Tower good? Yeah, and it's cool, it's appealing, it's fine. It's just, Ivory Tower Necropotence doesn't hit the same way that Traumatized Haunting Echoes does, where you are making more than the sum of the parts. Like, these are, I love both. If you're that person, you want both, but when you put them together, can't tell me nothing.
I also love doing Traumatize specifically in this set.
Oh, yeah.
Because this is like a constant, it's a game design topic. You can, I think, extract a lot of truth out of this. Is just so players who are more casual or more novice or not quite as good as Magic are often drawn to milling because it's just,
especially big numbers.
But the opposite is also true, that the same demographic finds milling to be significantly more invasive and frustrating than maybe you and I do. So there's this question now of, then why do mill at all? And the answer is because the person who is getting milled and hates it wins more often than the person who is milling them. So they get to have the experience of beating the bad guy, and the person who enjoys milling gets to have the mill experience, and everyone is having a better time, right? Up to a certain point. Why do it in this set then? It's like, well, if we're doing Flashback and Threshold, talk about two mechanics where if you're just blind traumatizing me and I'm playing with cards in this set, holy shit, am I going to beat the bad guy? Now my werebear's a 4/4. I've got a fog in my graveyard. I've got whatever else. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So you really have to mean it to have this amount to anything at all. So casual player gets to have that moment of just, here's a big mill number. I just milled 20 cards. You can't tell me anything. And then that person doesn't get to untap because you've just you've just put nitrous into all of your opponent's cards. And now everyone's having the best time of their lives.
Part of what I think is so brilliant about this design, not just here, but in general, is that milling is kind of inherently all or nothing.
Yeah.
And I think that it's also kind of like if you're not going to win, you're losing. But traumatize makes you want to do it early. Mm-hmm. The earlier you traumatize, the bigger the number for traumatize. Additionally, when you're thinking about traumatize, how can you not think of it as I'm milling, 25 cards or whatever?
Yeah.
But the second one doesn't mill 25 cards. But it doesn't read like it's nerfed, even though it secretly is. And that's when you would most want to mill them 25 cards, is when you already milled them 25 cards.
Exactly. Yeah.
So I think the card is very, very cool. Very dope.
What are your experience pro con with and against Nimble Mongoose?
So I like Nimble Mongoose.
I do too.
I think that Nimble Mongoose is an interesting card on its own. And it becomes interesting in a different way when it grows, and not interesting like with quotes, but it's actually it's a compelling game piece that makes for good gameplay at both levels. And I think that it's a great spot for Shroud. It doesn't mean you should do Shroud. Sometimes maybe Hexproof does make more sense, but I think that it actually plays well. Like it's not dependent on, it's not self-defeating. And I think it's there's answers to it, and I think that one of the easiest is play with your own creatures or whatever.
Yeah.
But I like it. As far as one-cost untargetable things go, it's...
Yeah. As someone who's certainly lost to Nimble Mongoose more than I've won with it, I think it's a really sweet design. The answer just being to play a big creature. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah. And there's not a shortage of deal 1 damage to everything. Or we each stack a creature, or whatever. By the way, we each stack a creature, Innocent Blood... Awesome design in the set. I think that they are well served having the stuff that fills your graveyard organically or semi-organically, but you're juicing the wheels a little. The fact that you're sacrificing your own creature is filling your graveyard. And I think they did a few too many versions of you can just mind twist yourself for no reason. Whereas organically increasing your graveyard because subtly that's just part of what your card does.
I agree with that in theory. For me, it breaks down in that example specifically because it's so much more powerful just going I'm on the draw, I'm not playing creatures, or I'm not playing creatures until quite a bit later.
Well, that's more powerful of it, but I just mean that existing as a way, maybe you could balance that card a little differently, but I just meant it's on theme. It's subtly on theme, even if the balance knob, I don't know that they needed to turn into 1 mana dodge the theme, but it's the better way for acceptable losses. How do you feel about Reckless Charge?
Reckless Charge is a shared language among a certain style of player of a certain ability level. I so much setting aside that okay, this is typically not the kind of effect that got over in limited, and there was enough right here that actually was good enough to play in various beatdown decks. It was actually some fringe play in block constructed for the red-green style beatdown decks or whatever. It's so cool to be thinking about these sort of cards within the terms of card economy and the way that people conceptualize Magic at the time. Just it's just all card advantage. And it's this is card disadvantage, but it does break down a little bit when 1, you get to do this twice at a pretty efficient rate, and 2, your opponent just dies as a consequence. Who was up cards? I don't know. You had 0 life and I had some left. That's really kind of what we're measuring at the end of the day. I also, for as on-board tricky as it kind of is, it's at least diffused in a couple of different ways. You had to be doing everything up front, and I don't know if you have a creature in your hand that's cheap enough to pair with giving this haste in your graveyard. It's not completely exonerated within the flashback critique of trackiness, but it's actually in a way that's fun. This is there. There's a possibility that something happens, but I don't know for sure. Even if the thing does happen, I might be able to get out from under it by chump blocking, but not necessarily depending on what the thing is.
To me, one of the great successes of this set is how much there was a conscious decision to take a bunch of things that have some appeal, but are never good or not that good and not what's going on, and to make them actually good.
Yeah.
And they did it in a way that had meaning and texture and wasn't just got over by, we'll make the numbers enormous. It was the world where they're like, Reckless Charge was the type of thing that was like, oh, there's one bad design and 7 times it's the Reckless Charge.
Yep.
So then they actually made it good this time. And it's attractive and appealing. And I remember what it was like to underestimate it, where I'm sitting against it and I just took 10, where I take 5 and I take 5. And I was just like, holy cow. And I was just like, that is such, and the feeling of Magic being new again, Reckless Charge was contributing to that. And I think that, and it happens with some of the other cards too, where the idea of like conventional wisdom in limited was that the burn spells are always good. Mm-hmm. And I think that them making acceptable losses, so how bad would we have to make this card and yet still be appealing and still get over?
I mean, that was a big, that card in particular was a big level up moment for me of, yeah, obviously you play all of your removal. You play all of your burn.
The idea that you could not play all of your removal?
Red struggles with big creatures in particular. So something that deals a lot of damage. And this one, it's like, I think I maybe am supposed to play a Grey Ogre over my second copy of this. I think maybe I'm not even supposed to play one. There is that paradigm shifting of like, it is at the end of the day rates. And if you're just copy pasting all the time, then yeah, it seems like all the things that give haste and plus X plus O suck, and all the red damage is really strong, but you can create other worlds if you want to.
This world, the fact that the best common is a green creature.
Yeah.
Like, there's so many things in this that that I think were really, really well executed they were difficult, and they actually built a world where a bunch of this stuff, and so I think that it can be easy to kind of like hate on some of the like specific designs. There's a very above average amount of what in the world is that doing even in this file? Like, I don't think all the cards got an equal amount of focus and love and attention.
Yeah.
But to me, Reckless Charge was a great example of what if we made something good for a change? And it's still very red. It's extremely
red. Yeah. I think, that's a cool to mention this set too, that, you know, I think people who weren't around for that era probably don't appreciate as much of. There was a debate between what's the best common, and it was a green creature that attacked or blocked and a blue looter. There were wild mongrel people and Cephalo looter people for the best common in the set.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I was a mongrel person.
I became a mongrel person. I was a looter person day one.
I was a looter person by the end of the block.
Oh, I was a mongrel person by the end of the pre-release. Okay, how do you feel about Milliken?
It's okay to not tell the whole joke.
In the name?
In the name. It's okay. You can...
Life Burst, Milliken, there's some names.
Allow, like, a little bit of abstraction. That's an okay thing to do. You can permit that. As a design in the set, very cool. I get it. Whatever.
I do like that. At least Milliken seems natural enough that you might not even think of the joke if you're...
Yeah. I like that Werebear is clearly the more appealing design of the two, but it's an artifact and it fills kind of the same role. I don't like the name very much.
I think it's a good enabler. I think it's fine. I think it's a cool card. I think Mannequin played well anyway, and Milliken, you know, it was a good time for it, and I liked it as a 0/1. What about Blazing Salvo?
Talk about another one that, and I actually do, it's kind of a funny thing that I do like it with Reckless Charge being in the set too, because you have the plus X plus O and haste is insane, and the burn spell is bad. But if you get enough of the plus X plus O's, maybe you can actually turn this card into being something useful. And again, it's usually the other way around.
I do love Blazing Salvo. Take 5. Okay, well, now I Reckless Charge my guy, hit you.
Right.
It's like, wow, maybe I should not take 5.
It's a card that, it is a little bit on the weaker side. So it didn't emerge all the time in draft or sealed or whatever.
It's very appealing.
It's people who are not very good are having a really good time with this, and people who are really good are having a really good time with this. It's hard to get that one kind of thing right. What are your thoughts on Holistic Wisdom?
So I built around it a lot.
That's part of the reason I asked.
I don't like the incentives. I think it's really repetitive.
What if everything was a constant mist with different ways of recurring it?
I think Holistic Wisdom is very the bad way. I think that the incentives are bad. I think that the deck building is bad. I think that the gameplay is bad. I think it's very repetitive. I also found it unsatisfying to build around because it takes you down a path that's a little bit of a lie. It feels like there should be a certain type of exploration happening when you're going down this path of building around Holistic Wisdom, and then it collapses into the, like, what is this really about?
Because not all these card types are created equal in terms of the incentives around, the ease and incentives around looping.
It's not that it's like a busted card or whatever, it's just, I don't think it's the right way, personally. What about Syncopate?
Awesome.
Banger, right?
Great design to do here for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
And I do think that, like, Blue X, that like design space is, in terms of like trying to balance it the right way, a really wise way to do it. You are typically playing a premium, and most importantly, the second copy in your hand the same turn is usually really bad. Like for me, a lot of where it breaks down is just like, yeah, I have 2 mana leaks, I have 2 counter spells, whatever. When you're talking about 2 syncopates, it's so rare that you can really, the second copy is allowing you to batten down the hatches, protect yourself in a way that the first copy doesn't. And that's a tough thing to get right.
What about Croson Beast?
I just wish it was better.
Exactly.
I wish it was better.
It's weird. It's weird in the same set as Roar the Worm.
Yeah.
But I think that there's something very attractive about a 1/1 that becomes enormous. It would have been nice to be even better and to be even bigger and to make this one good in a way that's different from Roar the Worm.
Also a little bit weird to do, like if you're going to do this sort of joke or whatever, also weird to do in the same set with Nut Collector. That's like a very odd to use 2 rare slots that way.
What do you think about Mind Slicer?
An indulgence that has definitely cost me win equity over the years. A very near and dear, I was a bad spike. I was not as good as I thought I was. This is the type of card that spoke to me at the time. It's actually a little confusing to me that the art's pretty close to Mortivore, and I get them tricked in my head all the time. But if you're talking just text box, banger. I love that one.
I think that during this era, they made way too many Mind Twists, but I like this one.
Yeah, me too.
I think that the idea that my creature, a lot of the rate is that I have a creature. But it also, if you want to get rid of it, you're getting rid of your own creature. And then you're getting rid of your hand. But there's like, it's got good swings. What about the Nantuku Disciple?
I think that it does speak to the era in a lot of ways, that the strongest commons are like, once you get past Cephalolooter and Wild Mongrel, it's Howl Healer, Nantuku Disciple, Chain Flinger. It's just like all the same terrible shit.
I also think these kind of cards work better as uncommons, but I think it made the board really complex in a way that wasn't great for like making Magic more fun for the world. Hallowed Healer and Nantuku Disciple in particular.
I was thinking about that, of the why does this one not get the Chain Flinger Hallowed Healer treatment? Like why is the rate not split up? And maybe it's not intentional, but also it's possible this actually makes the board complexity worse in terms of, I don't know if you have the ability to turn your Nantuku Disciple into a more powerful version of it in the middle of combat. Like, what's the distribution of all the scenarios where it's +1? And then what are the distributions of it's +2 and you got another card in your graveyard somehow? That sounds pretty rough. I want to give a quick shout out while we're, some bangers, some storytelling time, to Ground Seal. I only mentioned this because I was at the time dating someone who was an editor at Wizards of the Coast on this set, and this was the first time she said she was like trying to put a line down about a name, because she's like, it sounds like ground beef, like it's a ground seal. And she clearly lost that argument. This card went to print. But every time I see Ground Seal, I get a little chuckle out of it.
I don't know about draw a card, man.
They are fairly, I want to give them credit, fairly disciplined about putting draw a card on a cheap card to get it over. It's like, what are the offenders besides Ground Seal? Careful Study is its own thing. Shelter.
That's a good spot for it. That's the right way.
That's not a bad spot for it.
It's not proactive the same way.
Ground Seal is the one that feels.
Peak?
Yeah. Another, I would say, good spot for it.
Do you think Peak was good in the set? I don't like Peak here.
Just because
It's fine.
what the cards in everyone's hand means has too much weight based on threshold.
I think that if you want to, I appreciate wanting a 1-mana cantrip to fill the graveyard for threshold and wanting to put it at instant speed. But I think that look at their hand exacerbates the I'm going to go all in and kill you stuff.
Okay.
That's all.
Do you mean for constructed purposes?
No, even in draft.
Okay.
But also constructed. But I think in draft, the amount of, if I know you have nothing, then I can like just shove and do all this stuff that just kills you. And I think that it would have been a little bit better to have the 1-mana fast cantrip that you're doing be something else.
Like a jump or something like that?
Even opt would be good. What do you think about the Savage Firecat?
I want to give him credit for at least making one red rare that has power and toughness.
0/0, man.
But it's actually like something. I think Savage Firecat is fine for the standards of the time. I do not understand when you are looking at Need for Speed, Mudhole, Obstinate Familiar, Partic Minor, like the absolute worst, like the worst collection of red rares in any set ever. And I'm not talking about power. It's crazy that so many of the red rares in the set cost 1 and they all suck. How is that possible? Who's the guy who puts mind counters on people? And it's the first one of the rares is
there's multiple miners. The mine layer or the Partic miner. They're both horrible.
There's multiple rares that blow up lands at a terrible rate. There's one rare that says when you win a coin flip, you put a counter on this, and at the beginning of your upkeep, if this has 20 counters on it, you win the game.
And it doesn't flip any counters itself.
It doesn't flip any counters itself. And the only other card in the set that flips coins is another rare that flips a coin, and when you attack with something, and when you lose the flip, your thing gets fogged. So we're talking about a horrible, unappealing collection of rares. To look at Savage Firecat and just be like, okay, it's a big thing and it's got some drawback and we do a lot of this at the time, right? For no one to say, can we turn this into a 5-mana 4/4 with no drawback and some sort of power? So people who like cards that are appealing have one rare in red they want to open. It's not, I want to be clear, it's not Savage Firecat's fault, but it's another like, Jesus Christ, can you just give me one card that attacks and blocks in a way that is at all appealing?
Another way to think about the red cards in this set, there's a red card that stops your opponent from, okay, so there's a red card that destroys a land or an artifact, right? There's a red card that destroys a land and then another land. Mm-hmm. And then there's a red card that destroys the land that you put mine counters on and puts mine counters on land. And there's another miner that makes it so that your opponent can't play a land. And there's another card, Lava Blister, that destroys a non-basic land unless they take some damage. And there's another card, Mudhole, that exiles the lands from their graveyard. And there are these Atogs that sacrifice land. And there is the Savage Firecat that makes it so that if you tap your land, it gets smaller. Mm-hmm. The amount that this set was just like upset, like this did not look like a good faith effort by anybody who believed in playing red. Here's a red card that does something. You know, it's a sweet design, Ashen Firebeast, except it's an 8-mana 6/6.
Yeah.
And then like here's Valley of Boulders, awesome design. It is sweet. Costs 9. It's a little bit of a tough world for it, you know? Epicenter. Target player sacrifices a land. Threshold, all players sacrifice all land.
It's like, it is...
Burning Sands.
Crazy.
Burning Sands. Whenever a creature is put into a graveyard from play, that creature's controller sacrifices a land.
Awesome. So let's imagine...
What's going on? This is a weird joke.
Let's imagine you have a friend who's never played a card game before. We go back in time. It's 2001. And you have a friend who's never played a card game before. And you teach him Magic, and you two play for an afternoon, and they have sort of a broad understanding of how the game engine works. So you and your friend, you get in your car, you drive to, you drive to RIW, wherever the shop is, and you purchase a pack of Odyssey. How many of the red rares here would not cause your friend to immediately quit Magic?
Magnivore.
Magnivore's one. Seize the Day.
Volley of Boulders.
Volley of Boulders. We're hand waving anything about rate. Like,
Yep.
is it, yeah.
Just the Colossus, just the big, the 8-drop, the 9-cost spell, the Magnivore. It's not very promising though.
Go through all of the red creatures in the set at all rarities. How many of them have 2 or more toughness? It's less than half. It's not even close. And you might think that means that well, surely they have too many 1-mana creatures. That's got to be the root of the Nope, you'd be wrong. So for 1 toughness, we get 4 mana, 1/1, and Whip Keeper. We have Spark Mage, a 1-mana, 1/1. Partick Swordsmith, 3 mana, 1/1. Partick Miner, 2 mana, 1/1. Obstinate Familiar, 1 mana, 1/1. Mine Lair, 1 mana, 1/1. Kamal Pit Fighter, 1 toughness. Halberdier, 1 toughness. A Dwarven Grunt, 1 toughness. Bomb Squad, 1 toughness. Barbarian Lunatic, 1 toughness.
This is such a weird collection.
This is a putrid collection of cards.
This is so insane.
Either it's terrible at like looking at it vertically or horizontally. Like any way that you could square it off, it's so bad.
Why would you want to make 25 cards that all destroy land?
But they don't even do that. It's actually trying to piggyback off of the spiky understanding of Stone Rains being powerful without actually giving you Stone Rains. It's a bunch of fake Stone Rains or symmetrical Stone Rains. There's like 5 or 6 Stone Rains in the set, and Demolish is the strongest one. And the rest of them are rare. Like, this is so... like, what happened here? How is this possible? All right. One more to leave this on a positive note.
One more. Dude, there's so many... Aren't there so many, like... Okay, let me jump to just a couple real quick then.
Okay.
Yeah, because I know we got places to go, people to see. But, dude, okay, first, Predict.
Love it.
Yes.
Great.
That's kind of a cool metagame in this, right? Diabolic Tutor.
Awesome. Right way to do it. And guess what? It actually showed up in Constructed this time.
Yeah.
They a lot of that had to do with Cabal Coffers coming in the next set, but they made Strictly Worse Demonic Tutor, just rip the Band-Aid off, don't need to fight this anymore, and it was still had purpose in competitive play at the time.
Decimate. Destroy target artifact, target creature, target enchantment, and target land.
Hate this. The designs that are just like, this is
I was gonna say, I like this design. I don't like it in this spot, because I think there's too much of this kind of stuff in the set that are like, oh, see how tricky we are?
Yeah, this was
Concentrate. It's kind of a sweet time to do it.
It is a sweet time to do it. Yeah.
The Thought Eater and Thought Nibbler experience,
I wish these weren't as good as they were in draft.
That's fair.
They were really good in draft, and sorry, the Nibbler wasn't. The other two were good.
Bearscape.
Such a bizarre. I guess green has sort of this like eating its graveyard sort of dimension in the set or whatever.
I like Bearscape personally.
Yeah. I wish
it's really strong, but
for the set for constructed build around, like
you like Trenches so much more, right?
I do like Trenches so much more. Both of them have the issue of like I kind of wish the second copy did anything at all, but
Call of the Herd.
Good time and place to do it.
Masterpiece, I think.
And also it was funny because like the card, for as strong as it was in Standard, didn't really make a dent in Block Constructed. Because like the games were just about like the Mongrel, Wonder, Arrogant Worm stuff being way too big.
And Aetherburst is a little priced to move.
Aetherburst, the mono black stuff just having a lot of clean answers to it. That's I feel like that might have been another one that lost a mana at the 11th hour as part of some decree. I've had someone who would know told me that Call of the Herd got a pass at the last minute.
I think it's awesome.
I think so
the
too.
amount that it, like the cross format aspect of it was just so good for changing the feel of Magic a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Ghastly Demise.
Actually, I kind of like it here in some ways. Like, it's not really balanced so much around turn one.
Right.
Which is where a lot of the stuff breaks down. It's balanced around, on turn 5, I can play this and a 4-mana spell. And that's a cool way to do.
It's a little mathy.
It's a little mathy, but also, like, it's an interesting, maybe you're not supposed to do both of these in the same set. It is an interesting contrast with Innocent Blood, right? Like, Innocent Blood just works. It doesn't target, it's sorcery speed.
Yeah.
This one does target, it does not just work, it's instant speed.
I do think that it's a real problem that this has 48 cards that cost 1.
Yeah.
What do you think about Extract?
So this is the greatest design ever.
So Extract is one of mine.
Yeah.
It was in the original, like I was playing Extract in my custom sets from like the beginning. The very first one I did with Rosewater and Garfield had Extract in it.
Uh-huh.
And this set features, we haven't touched on too many of them, but this set features a number of cards that are literally just ported over from the CMU drafts I was doing, like the Chapin draft, they called it. So there's Extract was one of them.
Yeah.
That was in every, that just was so like, this is such the perfect Magic card. Second Thoughts was a weird one to be like, I mean, when I made it, you can like forgive me because it's like, I'm a kid who's making a bunch of weird stuff. And I like, of all the cards to copy from my set, that's a tougher one to live with where I'm like, did you have to pick that one?
I mean, you and I, this is our shared sorrow. Of all of the cards that at my time working at Wizards that I pitched or put into files versus the ones that got to print, it is some of the ones I'm most ashamed of. This is how it goes sometimes. I don't know.
Yep. What do you think about stuff like Bamboozle or Standstill? The natural pairing.
Stand Still, I think the game could do without. The first time you see it, whatever the thing is, like your opponent plays an island on one and then goes Mistress Factory Standstill, and you're like, oh, okay, I get what's going on here. I had to break this. Fine, That can be an interesting experience one time. And then after that, it's like, what are we doing here? It's not really the game I signed up to play.
I like Standstill as a design. I don't like its rate.
It's just like way too good.
What do you think about the weird support for stuff like there's like Squirrel Mob, and there's like the Druid Lord,
Nut Collector.
It's a weird collection
Seaton.
It's a weird collection of tribes, and then they don't really support it, and there isn't like the stuff stitching it together. I don't know. To me,
it is a weird part of the
Aboshan.
Not the most fun.
I hate that design, personally.
I mean, there was I don't know if it was like because of design sensibilities or just because of how the game balanced or whatever. The number of sets where the best rare or the best 2 rares are basically just 5 to 7 mana, lock your opponent out of the game is pretty bad. Abishin is one of them. Cabal Patriarch's another one. Cabal Pit Fighter is at least fragile. There's more hope of being able.
And you kind of want to dome them for 6 sometimes.
Yeah, and sometimes you want to put them into combat, whatever. It's something that I do want to give like Magic some credit for nowadays is the number of rares that are really, really good in the average set that are basically just a souped up common, a little bit more stats, a little bit more whatever, is and what the delta is between that trench of rare against the best commons and uncommons. It's actually not that bad. You go back and play this, and the top 5 rares are like so offensively good relative to how good the commons and uncommons are.
Time Stretch.
So
I like this design personally.
I do too.
Yeah.
And I can appreciate like, okay, so we're going to make Time Walk and then we make Time Warp and we know no matter what we do, there's going to be looping issues, right? So what if we just baked in the looping issue and then priced it such that it would be really hard to do? That to me is actually, like, it sounds like I'm joking. That's actually a smart way to try to address the problem.
Yeah.
As opposed to like, all right, so Time Walk's way too good at 2. We all know that. We'll make Time Warp. Okay, Time Warp still gets looped all the time. Because it actually turns out that 5 mana and some way to do
Well,
whatever.
and they put Mirari in the set, which is an awesome design.
Yeah, Mirari is an awesome design. So I do think actually, given what they knew about the issues with Time Walks at the time, Time Stress has its own problems, obviously, but at least all right, we're going to just gate this behind a ton of mana and not really concern ourselves with backstopping the loops because it's so expensive. It's a smart way to do it based on what they knew at the time.
Battle of the Wits.
Hate it.
Yeah?
Hate it.
I liked it at the time. It's not the best play experience,
It's
really.
so bad.
But I think that the amount that it changed the narrative and the topic and got you thinking about things in a different way. I don't think you can really randomize a 250 card deck under real tournament conditions.
You can't.
So it's kind of like it's a fatally flawed design in that capacity. But I liked the space that it was trying to expand into.
I also think that another downside risk of that actually coming in high is just the actual deck you're constructing is so expensive in terms of dollars that it reflects very poorly on the game. Because you need to have 50 dual lands and you're probably just playing all the random rate rares. For a variety of reasons, to me, it's high on the list of if someone with very little understanding of Magic, again, we're going back to your friend who you've taught the game to and they're starting to play or whatever. If you ever had to explain to them that that's one of the 3 best decks in Standard, that to me is a very obvious exit point for most people.
What's going on with the amount of stuff like Overeager Apprentice? I don't know if you call it a cycle, but there's all these cards that say draw a card that cost a ton. So instead of cheap cantrips, there's just so many expensive cantrips.
I actually love that.
But you don't think it gets worse? Why do 10 or 15? Why not do 5?
That's a good question. Yeah.
That's all. I just think there's too many expensive cantrips.
We're still a couple sets away from talking about Ember Shot, but this does lay down some of the Ember Shot architecture.
Almost to the end here. What's up with Scorching Missile?
I know that William Jensen was credited with popularizing the anarchist innocent blood archetype. So, I was one of the type of people, once I heard an idea, I was take the ball and run with it a little bit here. You know what I mean? I was an anarchist Scorching Missile drafter. Now you can easily plug in any number of innocent bloods into that skeleton. That's fine, right? But you have so many different dimensions to it. Have you ever morgue theft your anarchist to get back your Scorching Missile? The key thing, if this comes up, I don't care how bad you flood out the Magic Online, don't flashback the Scorching Missile. You need to leave it there. If you're coming in for lethal, then you can do it. Otherwise, just I promise you, hang tight. Just hang tight with it.
Repentant Vampire?
Sweet, yeah, this is a sweet
There's
card.
something really fun about that,
Yeah,
right?
and the Wayward Angel, there's a nice little duality. Nice to have something that's a little creatively outside the scope of a lot of the set.
Sadistic Hypnotist?
Banger.
Yeah. Sadistic Hypnotist makes me happy that I went to the trouble.
Yes.
Shower of Coals, very controversial at the time.
Yeah, there's somewhere in the archives of the Pro Tour coverage, you can watch me against a Japanese player who was playing on a Japanese team, and it is me taking a shower of coals that I'm resolving and putting it under 3 creatures and then dumping into the graveyard. I was actually really upset about this because I don't remember who it was, because I think this is certainly before Turian's time, but I was told by someone who knew people at WotC. It's yeah, they put Shower of Coals and Overrun and a couple other cards uncommon because they want to help novice players win at Sealed and Draft.
Which is true.
Which is true. And I was so incensed and so offended about it of all of this work I'm putting in trying to get good at Magic, and you're just going to let these people do this to me, not acknowledging that there were different cards that did that for me.
And a lot more of them.
At earlier times.
Kurtar's Wrath.
Cool design. Also responsible for one of the greatest plays I've ever seen in my entire life. You mentioned Second Thoughts before.
Yeah.
John Sani, I'm watching him play. Something that would happen with good players with Second Thoughts is your opponent, we call it the Second Thought sigh. Your opponent plays lane number 5 and goes, go. They're flooding out. You Second Thoughts them, right? So something that you can do is just not attack, or maybe only attack with your worst creature or whatever. Build up this army, right? So I'm watching John. John's under a little bit of pressure. He has a Kirtar's Wrath in his hand. And he plays land number 5. Go. Opponent doesn't attack. John draws, has land number 6 and Kirtar's Wrath in hand, says go. 2 turns of this go by. John discards a spell to hand size.
Amazing.
Gets everything. Kirtar's Wrath wins.
That's the thing of beauty.
My God. So if you ever wonder if second thoughts added anything,
that makes me happier about my contribution.
One of the all-time greatest plays ever. Because when he drew and didn't play the land number 6, I was like, that's weird. Like, don't you maybe want to play around a counter or something when you're going to wrath it?
The discard
and
is
the discard
amazing.
is like, oh no, he's getting everything.
Oh,
yeah. That is one of the greatest plays I've ever seen.
That's so sick.
Random like Grand Prix Day 2 or whatever.
Iridescent Angel?
Sweet design.
Yeah. I like the collection of rares in this set, actually. I just think that it's unfortunate that they didn't design any for red.
A Mugga Bugga.
It's a pretty cool one. Stalking Bloodsucker's a dope
very
design.
Cool, yeah. A Mugga Bugga was nicknamed the bus at the only game in town.
Cultural Exchange is a cool card to add some dimension.
That's an award winner for me.
Right.
We'll get to that.
Then, let's just go to the awards with, there's one more card, though, that I wanted to mention, which was the Vampire Dragon.
Sure.
Just because at the time, there weren't like an abundance of dragons, but like this guy plays pretty dope. And this is a fun recipe, right?
It is a cool card. I wish it was a little bit more different from Cabal Patriarch.
And
it is a kind of in the same.
Yeah, but my issues with Cabal Patriarch. I just don't want Cabal Patriarch.
Yeah. Vampire Dragon's a way sweeter design.
I also think Vampire Dragon's more fun if you make it cheaper.
Also true.
But I don't know. I don't think there was enough quite believing in the expensive stuff, because for a set that has 54 cards that can destroy your own land, they sure made a lot of the sweet cards cost 6 or more, and you just can't play them.
It's one way to do it.
Let's talk about some awards, man.
All right, we'll be back in a moment with the awards for Odyssey. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. Resleevables Odyssey Edition. It's award time. A lot of candidates here for a couple of these categories. Took a little while. But I want to start first. Most powerful card in a low power setting. Patrick Chapin, your answer is?
I don't know if I'm going to regret this answer. Because there is a part of me that's tempted. It's very easy to just want to say stuff like Psychotog or whatever. But my answer, in my heart of hearts, my answer is Upheaval.
My answer is also Upheaval.
Here you go.
Yeah. I think it is just, yeah. It's just busted if you have card drawing counter spells. It's busted if you have mana acceleration.
Well, it's way too good of a rate. It's an absurdly
good of a rate. Yeah.
But it's also so problematic for so many reasons, not the least of which how it interacts with this set.
All right. This one might be a little bit easier.
This one is simple.
Most powerful card in a high powered setting. I went with Entomb.
Same.
Okay. This card sure is something.
Yeah. So, was this a good design?
Yes.
Here are my issues with Entomb. And it's not just revisionist history. I think, first of all, I do think there's something weird with Entomb and Buried Alive.
Totally, yeah.
But it's not necessarily a deal breaker. Because at least, an instant sorcery, anything you want versus just a creature, Entomb your flashback, there's
all
difference.
other things being equal, you should probably kick one of the two designs to Torment.
And there's a lot of different stuff going on in this set. And you could also talk yourself into, Entomb's a rare. We want something like this to show up at lower rarity. I guess. I don't know. It does seem like, I don't know, just do it at low rarity in Torment or something, right. I guess. I don't know.
Yep.
But regardless, is it actually right to do Entomb for 1 instead of 2?
At the time, I think yes. I think, especially if you're going to do Diabolic Tutor in the set, I think using your bandwidth on 2 different black designs that are both going to read as way worse than Demonic Tutor, I would start calling that into question. Entomb, at least, has the
I thought that's part of the upside to do it for 1 in a black is that it's like Demonic Tutor.
I don't know. It's obviously way too good. So if the
It
conversation
was way
is,
too good the moment they printed it.
Yeah,
It was immediately busted with all the animate stuff.
So the question of whether or not it was a good design to me is more, would this be the type of thing to subsidize in this set/block? Is this a novel, different thing? I think the answer is yes.
If you're going to do it,
The rates way too much.
I'm just talking about the rate.
Oh, then no.
I think it's a masterpiece. I'm saying 1 in a black would have been a better spot for it.
yeah.
Not a masterpiece. I think it's an awesome time to do this design, and this is not a text box that is it's normally never so well suited. This is a great time to do this text box. I just think the world has more fun from the get-go if this card is 1 in a black like Demonic Tutor.
Sure.
But the joke is you're putting it in the graveyard.
Coolest commander card.
The word coolest is weird. I kind of take this to be what commander card suits my predilections.
I would say I try to go for a blend of that meets speaks to the spirit of the format.
Yeah.
Like when you're going on most played cards on EDH record, it's brainstorm. Like no.
No, I'm talking about like that speaks to that experience and also my own predilections of what I like out of that kind of stuff.
All right, what's your answer?
Moment's Peace.
It's not a bad answer. I went with cultural exchange.
Thought about
That's
that
a fun,
But are you really ever going to do it?
Would I? With the right people.
So the reason
I would never just have a pickup cultural exchange, but if I was playing with the same people every Saturday night or whatever, I could imagine people where I would do that.
I would Moment's Peace against anybody.
Okay.
And it translates the universal language of, because then it's so sick because Moment's Peace is just sitting there and this is just how we play.
Yeah.
And of course they don't want to like go after me. I have a Moment's Peace and then I still just have a Moment's Peace. Mm-hmm. It's so dope. And it's so dope to Moment's Peace somebody else to save them as a political favor.
Sure.
I love that shit, And then the reason I'm like, the line to me on Culture Exchange was that it doesn't work the way I would have wanted it to, which is that I could just rearrange.
Sure.
If I could Cultural Exchange and rearrange any number, if I could do any number of swaps, the fact that it's only 2 people, that limits the fun to me.
That's fair.
But I do Moment's Peace is how I love that kind of like playing multiplayer with where we're playing diplomacy.
Mm-hmm. Favorite art in the set? I went with Centaur Garden.
I went with Psychotog.
All right, let me tell you why. It's a John Ayon piece, obviously. Masterpiece. So I talked a little bit earlier on the show of like, this is not just mechanical, right? You're trying to, even though these designs are quite mechanical, you want to convey something. And how all 5 of the pieces of the art suggest this is like an arena for combat or training or something.
Yeah.
And I think the garden in particular is, the artwork is so geometric, so symmetrical. And then if you look in the background, it's like the craggiest, most mountainous terrain you can imagine. Like it conveys a sense of intentionality that this could not have possibly been natural to this environment. A group of people had to make, or centaurs, I guess, had to make this with intentionality to create this. And the juxtaposition of how, linear and geometric and symmetrical the actual garden is versus how chaotic the background is, I think it's just a fantastic piece of art.
That's a great answer. I do have a newfound appreciation for this, but I still have to give it to Psychotog because to me, Psychotog is honestly, if I were going to like go with the 20 most iconic pieces of art in the history of Magic, I still think Psychotog is like one of them.
Yeah.
It's so iconic. Mm-hmm. It's so iconic. And that's even though, Atog was very iconic, but Psychotog took it to a whole nother level.
Yeah.
I do want to give an honorable mention to Shadow Mage Infiltrator.
Not just because,
so Johnny Magic. So a lot of the invitational cards, there's a little bit of like, on some of the invitational cards, there's a little bit of, is this really look like this person? I mean, it does where you're like, I can see it. Some of the invitational cards, it's like, that's this person cosplaying as a robot, But like, Shadow Mage Infiltrator is so intensely looking like John from that era. It's so faithful, and at the same time, It's a mage doing the stuff.
The two to me historically that it's like, oh, this really looks like the person. For me, it was Avalanche Riders.
Oh, yeah.
I think that's like they really captured Darwin well on that one. Shadow Mage Infiltrator is another good one. Biggest design success. Your answer.
The real answer is that they pulled off making this set about so many different things than what was normally good. The amount of everything from green wild mongrel, green creatures are good, to direct damage isn't the first pick cards, to like the amount of things that they conventions that they turned on their head without it just being a novelty. I think is very successful.
My answer is essentially the two mechanics dovetail nicely without being super prescriptive. By which I mean, if you go through the blocks in Magic's history, you have Mirage block, phasing, and flanking. Completely unrelated. Then you get to Wrath Cycle, Shadow, and Buyback. Again, Saga, Echo, cycling. Mercadian Masks, Rebels, Parallax,
Fading,
and Ristic. I guess Ristic and Rebels sets a tone, you could say, of a certain time, but I wouldn't say that they're like a hand in glove fit with one another. All right, we go to Invasion. We have Kicker, super expansive, whatever. This is, I think, the first time in Magic's history you could really say the two mechanics are broadly about similar stuff without being exactly the same. So imagine like the mechanics over time as there's like a Venn diagram and where is the intersection. And the blocks I'm describing from Mirage through Invasion, there's essentially no overlap. To the extent there's any, it's like pretty random.
It's almost as if they picked two mechanics that are on opposite ends as possible so as to like carve out a lot of space.
I think a lot of it was a mechanic that can often the duality that I see.
The board and the
and the cards in hand and cards on the board. This is the first time where there's the Venn diagram. There's a lot in the middle, but it's not a full overlap. And that to me is like, that's kind of how Magic's done now. And Odyssey was the first set that did it. And so I think that to me is it's a hugely influential set, and I don't think people typically point to that, but executing that off of the mechanics is a gigantic step forward.
I do think the Invasion started the tone there by Odyssey did it a little bit more concretely, but Invasion had Kicker, Domain, and Gold.
Yeah.
They are kind of doing the thing. You just don't think of them necessarily that way because Kicker is everything and Gold is everything. So it feels like it's too much of it, but they really are actually kind of all of it. So, and I think that's really the modern era of that new era. I just have to give it to Invasion though, because to me, Odyssey really was just cribbing. Invasion's playbook was the one who invented it, but it's easy to give Invasion credit for a lot of stuff.
Yeah.
Odyssey did it without the crutch of multicolors a slam dunk.
Biggest failure, I will go first. These goddamn rares are insane. This is like such an appalling collection.
I'll give you the bottom half of the rares. But do you really feel like the top half of the rares is appalling?
I think the top 10% is not.
No,
I think
10%.
I think 11 to 49, yeah.
Really?
It's I'll modify my answer. The bottom 25% of this set is not acceptable.
Okay, I'll give you that.
All right, what's your answer?
Basically same answer. But I think that there's a nonsense lack of artistry reason where there's 20 versions of the same bad thing. And I think that this set, it's so weird how much this set like the amount that this set manages to have cards in it that have no business being in this set. It's impressive because normally if you put too many cards in that have no business being in this set, they overlap enough that becomes a new thing going on. This set somehow, this is certainly a top 5 all time most cards in this set that do not belong in this set without it becoming a set where they belong. Yes. It's incredible. It's remarkable. And part of this is that even the stuff that does quote unquote belong, it's baffling the overlap. Like, why would you do Tombfire and Coffin Purge? And there's like 8 other ones, right? Like, you would do 10 of that?
Yes.
Mudhole. You would do 10, you need to do Mudhole. There's not a single reason why you would want to do Mudhole. It's so lazy of a design. It's definitely somebody was like, oh, cute. Hey, it looks like what happens when you're like working on stand-up comedy and you're sketching out different ways jokes could go, and somebody finds the like sheet of scrap paper where you're like workshopping the joke, and they just print all of them.
Yeah.
Just tell the same joke 10 times, even though it's like, why don't you just tell it the one? Like, or two if you somehow find a way to do a callback. But so like the idea that this set has so many versions of, oh, there's a green creature that costs 4 that becomes huge when you have a lot of cards in your graveyard. You know? It's like, that's the stuff that's on Message. So the amount of stuff that this set has, and also, the amount of like cribbing their own thing where they're like undercutting themselves, where it's like, okay, you're going to somehow do Bash to Bits and Earth Rift, and you're going to just do Demolish in the same set. You're just going to, with a straight face, you're going to make Demolish when you're making Earth Rift and Bash to Bits.
And not to say nothing of the plethora of red rare creatures that pick up the ball and keep running with it.
Yeah, so to me, the big failing, it looks like there was an incredible, I bet this set was very hard to make.
Oh,
I think this set looks like, because it's weird, because it looks like there's so many spots where it's like, dear God, why wasn't there more work done? I bet they worked their asses off because they were trying to do some real fancy, hardcore stuff. Like there's some real, we are too clever for our own good.
It's a related problem, but slightly different to my eye, is this looks like a set where too much of the playtesting was limited, sealed in draft. Like it looks like a surprising amount of scrutiny went into the commons and uncommons relative to the rares. And given the era and the team, it would not surprise me if that was the case.
It also makes no sense why red and white. Like, what the hell? Yeah. It's not even like you can't arrive at this randomly. It almost looks like there was just like a conscious decision to make both red and white unspeakably bad. And it's so weird because it's not even just low power level. It doesn't look like anybody was like trying or invested in the white cards or the red cards.
Yeah.
Like the white cards, the amount of recipes that are all, hey, here's a super generic thing that's a little bit worse, but when you do the condition, it becomes very slightly better than you would have got before.
And how many of them are damage prevention or
+0, +1 your team? Yeah. I mean, it's so many. And then the amount of red cards, obviously, that destroy your land. It's like, what the hell?
All right, so the next two categories, won most with and have lost the most.
Wait, what was your failing?
Just the bottom tranche of rares.
Yeah.
So won most with and lost most to. I believe this is certainly the first and perhaps the only set in which my answer to both of these questions, the answer beats all other cards in the set put together. But we're going to go with won the most with first. Your answer.
I'm going to go with Squirrel's Nest.
Okay.
There's different ways to look at what is it like to have won the most. And so if we set aside the reprints, what did I win the most with the Odyssey version and all that, Squirrel's Nest I won money with, and as far as Odyssey cards go, Squirrel's Nest is the card that I won the most money with over replacement compared to everybody. I won with Wild Mongrel and everybody else, blah, 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 right?
Right.
But everybody did. Squirrel's Nest was my most me over replacement.
So my answer to this is certainly the card that has punched the most tickets for me getting to the Pro Tour, Firebolt. It's not even close.
Right. If my real answer would be Firebolt and Psychotog, but Psychotog's a lame answer for this.
Right.
Really, Psychotog's my real answer, but I use that for art.
All right, I'll go first.
Firebolt is great. That's one of my favorite designs in this set.
It's a great one.
It's a beautiful, beautiful.
Yeah, dispersion of raid and it's not just inflation, because shock is certainly something that's sensitive to operating at instant speed and it actually. There's a range where the flashback cards, sometimes can be stressful or lost in the shuffle or whatever. I think there's a difference when the shock is asking you to get to 5 mana, where now it's actually kind of a fun thing to have start to enter the game as part of the range. Like, you know, I'm falling behind a little bit or you've stabilized, but it's going to take you a while to close the game out. I get to 3 mana and now we're both sort of aware that this is like a way the game could go. I think that's really great.
In my heart, I know the truth that Burst Lightning is a slightly better design.
It is a slightly better design.
But I think that at some point you want to have Firebolt in the mix.
Yeah, I think it's totally fine as part of the range. All right. Card I've lost to the most. And again, I'm pretty sure this beats all other cards combined in Odyssey.
Is your Psychotog?
Cephalid Coliseum. Oh my God.
Okay,
this is like just a 0.000% against this card.
Wow, okay. I can see that.
This is like, all right.
I beat Cephalid Coliseum people.
Yeah, no, I do not beat Cephalid Coliseum people. It has actually over the years beaten me more than Entomb, if you can believe that.
I can believe it, but my real answer would be Entomb if it weren't for the fact that I used Entomb for strongest and high power, or Psychotog, but I used that. So my answer is Firebolt.
Yeah, so Cephalid Coliseum was, I want to be clear, like going through these questions, that's the first one I plugged in.
Yeah.
That's like
that's
like a lock. No other answer. No other answer to any other question could be as strong as me and Cephalid Coliseum.
Sure.
I do not beat those people.
Design with the most wasted potential.
This is a deep bench. There is no end of good answers to this one. I went with Hint of Insanity.
Why? That's interesting.
The combination of there's an uncanny amount of mind twisting going on meets there's an uncanny amount of caring about cards with the same name meets who is this for? Like,
what's the potential? Because it sounds like you're just describing a bad design instead of wasted potential.
You could talk me into this in a set that didn't have the shrines, like as just a random design to do. That's fine.
Yeah, but is there a lot of potential in it?
To me, a lot of like most wasted potential to me is often like most slot inefficient.
I see.
And to like this one is there could be room for the sort of thing. Hunting Echoes is probably scooping up too much of the theoretical cranial extraction space or whatever. There is like needs that a discard spell in this spot could fulfill.
Isn't the Hypnotist doing that?
Sort of. Yeah, a little bit. Just intersects with a lot of problems and weird call-outs.
I don't like Last Rites as a design.
No, I don't know of anyone who does. Okay. Your design, most ways of potential.
Writing down a card is tough for this because there's really a void. And I think that the void is the thing that was the wasted potential. But the card that's going to kind of be the figurehead is Divine Sacrament. Divine Sacrament is a glorious anthem that doubles up when you have Threshold. But what's weird, what makes tokens in this set? I mean, there's Chatter, Squirrels, and Squirrel Nests. Like, if you're going to play green, green gets everything in this set.
Mm-hmm.
But the white cards, the amount going on in this set that is just like an embarrassment for both red and white, as we've been talking about, is very high. But the gameplay, the opportunity of how much things could have been dope if there was stuff for white, like if there was a threshold design that makes it so that when your guy dies, you get some other thing. And if there's a card that has if there's a sacrifice theme and there's some like nomad and there's some like nomad, whatever it is, the 1/1 that when it dies, you get a 1/1 flyer. Mm-hmm. And then it would be good against the removal. And it's also interesting and fun to have your guy, and if there was like, Chatter Squirrels could be a white card. And like the amount of stuff that could have been good that would, like, for white having some small creatures, the amount that like a Glorious Anthem that buffs bigger or later is a sweet design.
That's
anyway.
a great idea.
And it lines up compelling in this world where you've got stuff like Shower Coals and a million 2/2s, and
if both of us are scaling, then it's kind of an interesting thing.
And it's I think that this design or this file could have been dope if somebody had tried to make some of the white cards resilient to sweepers and white tokens and white small creatures, if you would have aspired to make Divine Sacrament good. And I think that's why, to me, it's so much wasted potential. is that there's just no support for that kind of a thing at all. And it would have been great for the incentives, for the gameplay, for counteracting the all black removal stuff, for like changing the nature of what it's like for there to be blue-green, you know, like the blue-green stuff with no removal. So that's my answer, is the problem with red in the set, red has both higher highs than white and almost no anything. Mm-hmm. There's like a couple things, but there's almost nothing. And that's like not even until Torment, really. So it's not even this set. But like, yeah, I guess red is an abomination, but it's so bad that there isn't even anything to work with.
Like none of the designs give you an idea for, oh, that could have been a sweet design. They're all so far removed from a good idea, which is not true of the white cards.
The white cards, there are several good ideas hinted at. The Mystic, the Visionary, the 2/1 that becomes flying later. You know, you could turn, there's a thing of, my little white aggro card, now it picks up flying and can start attacking again.
Very sweet.
Right. There's a bunch of stuff in white that could be the beginnings of something dope that I think is wasted potential. Red, that's not even,
Yeah.
There's nothing. There's nothing to work with.
All right, last up. What's your favorite card in the set?
So it's tight between two. I know the truth is Skeletal Scrying.
Yeah.
Skeletal Scrying is so, especially in this day and age, rates have evolved and so on. But to me, the amount of, it's not a given to do good necro stories. Most of the necro stories early on were way too bad or way too good. Mm-hmm. Skeletal Scrying, by scaling off of a mana and a card in the graveyard and a life, it actually kept it in balance relative to the era, and there was some play to it, but it was powerful. But it was like at a rate that was like not just scaling out of control, but it was so good against the bad people. Mm-hmm. And it was it's such good gameplay for that kind of a thing. So I loved the effects of Skeletal Scrying. I loved playing with it. I loved playing against it. I liked it in this world, in this context. But my other answer is Tainted Pact, because if we're stepping outside of just this context and we're just talking about this one card, I do like the Tainted Pact experience more than I should. It's a little bit of a vice.
Yeah, me too.
I'm not saying I like it for good reasons. I like Skeletal Scrying for good reasons. I like Tainted Pact for bad reasons.
I'm going to give it, honestly, I want to give it to Wild Mongrel. I do.
Great answer.
You have to do that on purpose. Obviously, it's so far above rate for what you typically got for a green creature. And to say, like, it's going to be a green creature and it works with the stuff. It works with the stuff that's going on, but you could also plausibly play just in your beatdown deck on rate.
Oh, yeah.
People did that. And when the card lands in that sort of place where it's like plausible if you're all in, all the way down to plausible to do nothing with, often people get to like push the range in a little bit where they're getting less extreme over time if they're more extreme, or they're ratcheting up their synergies if they have nothing. There's so many different things you can do with that sort of card. And you have to like really believe in it to do it. And that's one that's, to me, so transparently above curve for the era, and even compared to other cards in the set like Patrol Hound, that is like at the time sort of a fringe constructed level card and enabler, to just say like, no, this one gets a pass. It's going to facilitate all the stuff that we want to be doing without making the game miserably long. Or, I mean, it does alleviate some of even like the flashback. We're tracking this emboldened in our graveyard, like, because while Mongrel produces games that are so explosive that it does solve some of the downside risk of flashback, at least in constructed.
Reasonable. Sure. It is intense.
No question.
And it costs 0 to activate.
You know what? This set is set aside Psychotog and Wild Mongrel.
Yeah.
It is lacking intensity. So much of the set is this like sort of slow accruing of small edges and
edges.
Yeah. The like timing your flashback stuff and like the opportunity cost of getting the threshold at the time.
See, I felt like it was so tempo oriented, but maybe I'm just thinking because Psychotog and Wild Mongrel are so warping it so much.
Made it that way. Yeah.
Because I actually think they needed more of that kind of stuff just spread out more instead of so much. Like, Wild Mongrel and Psychotog are both kind of intense in the same way, too.
It's true. I think that if you sat down with just like random commons and uncommons of the set and didn't involve Wild Mongrel as Psychotog, it would be like, this is grueling. The pace of play is so slow. Yes, 0 mana, infinite scaling is intense, and the math on Psychotog is really rough. I think the world where they don't exist is worse.
I think the world where Psychotog doesn't exist is better. Yeah. But I do think that the world where Wild Mongrel doesn't exist is way worse.
Way worse.
So yeah, I'll give you that. Wild Mongrel's not a natural design either. You don't just start with Wild Mongrel.
Otherwise, we're just bearscaping each other all day long.
I just think there should have been more of it.
Sure. And more diffuse, like,
yes.
Instead of 1 A+, make like 8 B+ to A- minuses. Yeah. But at the time, that was like not typically how things went. Usually it was like we're just going to give this one thing a pass.
I think that the amount that Odyssey actually upturned the conventions from Invasion is impressive.
Yeah.
Because I think that there's a certain amount of, you're kind of like working against the grain to try to like, on the heels of the only sets in Standard, there's like the core set and then there's Invasion, Plane Shift, Apocalypse. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to come in with a new set that's not a gold set, you're going to have to like do some serious work to upturn and Odyssey, I think, is very impressive at being able to kind of like, now part of that is that when you make there's more, when you make as many 1-cost cards in one set as the entire previous block.
I also appreciate that about Odyssey of like, they didn't completely abandon the gold stuff from the previous block. It's like a cycle of duels, cycle of rares that are allied, and the eggs kind of speak to both things in a certain way.
Do you need to do the eggs and the scavenging debris, whatever?
No.
And
no, you don't
like,
need to do
there's
all
like, I just think that it would have been nice to have 5 more fixers that actually fix.
Yeah. So with that, give it a grade.
What's your grade? Because I want to make sure
I give this set a C-.
A C-. I mean, I guess it's not that far off. I give it a C+.
Yeah, I think that's a very, very reasonable grade.
And to me, it's between a C+ and a B-. It depends on what you're into.
-C- to C.
If we're going to go on degrees of difficulty to make this set this good, I think this set is deceptively hard to have made this good.
I agree.
You know what? This is a set where it would have been great to hand off the file.
I think that's a good call out. Yeah.
And it's tough because in some ways they did, but this definitely looks like the development team should have. They sculpted. This would have been a great one for final design to hand it to play design and have 2 different groups of people.
Mm-hmm. I think my biggest issue is there are individual designs that I think are cool. And I think the keywords grading on like the era, way above average. Where it breaks down for me is, where does a satisfying 2-player or 4-player game emerge out of this? The answer is, it really doesn't organically, by which I mean Flashback and Threshold is just mostly me fiddling around with my own stuff. You're doing the same thing. And so whatever fun is going to come out of that is going to be the cards on the table and the act of things achieving threshold and what that means, and the flashback stuff in the graveyard and what that means. And to me, the design, the 50th percentile design is so grindy and ticky-tacky and laborious and onboard tricky that's exactly why I think your point about this file needed a handoff is perfect. Because I think that if you took the bottom 10 to 15% of designs in the set and just turned them into something that was fun.
No, more than that. I think that there are the bottom 15. I think that more than 15% of this is heinous.
Sure. Yeah.
My bar is even higher. So.
Yeah, but that's whatever that line is. If a room of people who are good at crafting what gameplay looked at could say, so much of this stuff is just more like manipulating of resources for ways that are unappealing to power up my own cards, and you and I don't like really interact along this axis. So the game on the table is what's really going on. And the game on the table isn't very fun because all the cards are so boring and slow and ticky-tacky. It's hard for me to get past that. Like the top level, we're going to make, like to your point about this is a hard set to do for sure. And I give a lot of charity and grace for the era of we have two keywords that actually overlap in a way, and now we have to find designs that call out both of these things or speak to both of them. In the world where you're just doing flashback and shadow, buyback and shadow, just make your shadow creatures, make your buyback cards, the end. Like this is a much more challenging thing to integrate mechanically. So I want to grade on that scale, but it's the cards, the nuts and bolts cards are just brutal.
So part of the issue with the mechanics is that I think not enough of the designs were just a card that has a little extra juice that isn't just whatever. Like, okay, as an example, Werebear is a good one. Werebear is attractive both the one way and the other. Mm-hmm. And there's a rhythm to it. There's a reason. It rhymes with itself. It's harmonic. The amount of cards in the set where it's like Springing Tiger. It's
exactly.
Like, it's just, there's some stats and then there's more stats.
And there's like 4 Springing Tigers.
There's more than that. There's so many. And like, is it like the texture of black cards is that they all can't block when you have Threshold? Why is that like...
Who made that? Yeah. Like,
why is that the thing?
Right.
So the idea that this set could have been better with... It could have been better with more things having been crafted. I think it's very revealing how much there's like blue-green and there's black.
Yeah.
And there's black because of blue-black, but like, it's just so obvious that that's what's going on. But there isn't even like the exploration, the attempt to flesh out the other colors and the other play patterns and the other experiences. There's just so much of this. Basically, there's this extreme that happens here. Like, how we talk about sometimes of being as fast as possible or as big as possible. The incentives of this set are so hyper on this one giant long ultra spiky axis that the natural incentive from this pool of cards and this philosophy is play with all removal or all creatures.
Yeah.
That's the natural incentive. Play all creatures or all removal. And that's lame. It's not the exact same problem, but it's a different problem. And that's why there's like, the mono black deck and the blue black deck are the one way and Threshold and Madness are the other way, is because it's a little bit what happens when you design cards, but you don't architect a metagame. But there's a lot to like.
No, there is a lot to like. Yeah, I don't want to be too negative on it because it's an enormous challenge for the era and there's a lot to like in the set.
Yeah, and it played a key role. One of the worrying parts, though, is that what's the expression when the hens take over the hen house or something? Like, things get a little unhinged over the next few years at a certain point, and I think part of it is...
Do you mean inmates running the asylum, sort of?
Yes, the inmates running the asylum. I think that there's a certain amount of tension sometimes between different areas of the game of who is making what. Mm-hmm. And I think that one of the things that Magic had to figure out was where is the line between designing environment, like a world, designing a set, designing a mechanic, designing a card, designing a theme, designing a cycle, designing a metagame, designing an archetype. Like, there's a lot of different things to design, and there ends up being some tension between who's making what, and different people have goals, like you talked about your ground seal.
Yeah.
Clearly just different goals, different sensibilities, different priorities. And so I think that Magic had to do some growing and evolving, and it's an ongoing thing. It still does, but we are going to see that in the next couple of sets. And I do think, though, I would rather the bottom 25% be horrible if the top 25% is awesome. Mm-hmm. Then it all be lukewarm, Yeah.
I think it feels to me, without knowing the history, this era starting right here, a lot of where, to me, where a lot of it feels like it breaks down from the outside looking in, this is obviously very speculative, it feels just an undue amount of draft and sealed getting played. Because Odyssey does have a, like, the commons, even the unappealing ones, they have purpose.
Oh, yeah.
The number of commons in this set where it's, you play it between 10 and 20% of the time is really high. And that, to me, speaks to a very smart team being very mindful about the way that different game pieces line up at lower rarities. And I think that that's true in the upcoming sets and the upcoming blocks. And when you combine that with the relative lack of scrutiny it feels like the rares got, and the people that were involved making Magic at the time, this is my current theory of how things got a little... And it is an inmates running the asylum thing, because everyone loves to draft. Everyone loves to play sealed. It's not hard to round up a bunch of people for a Wednesday draft afternoon. I'll tell you that much. But that winds it down for our grades of Odyssey, and we'll be back in a moment to close out the show. Welcome back to Resleevables Odyssey Edition. We have a lot of thank yous, people to shout out, things to direct you to. First of all, Tales of Adventure, TOAmagic.com. Eternal lives here. Make sure to use promo code Resleevables at checkout for 5% off of all of your orders. Bosch and Roll, Brian Koval's channel on YouTube. If you enjoy Eternal formats, you enjoy an entertaining and talented streamer, go subscribe right after you're done watching this video. To Dragon Shield, you can use promo code Resleevables, that's all one word, lowercase case sensitive, for 5% off of all of your orders at dragonshield.com. There's an affiliate link in the notes as well. If you are watching this on YouTube, thank you, and we would appreciate a like and subscribe. If you're interested in more of this sort of content, you can head over to patreon.com/Resleevables, where you can find a whole host of other stuff that we're working on, including the Unsleep podcast, Crack-A-Packs, and so on. You can find a tier that works for you. Next up, Torment. One of Magic sets, maybe the first Magic set that goes, what if we started from this horrible underlying assumption, but then it did a pretty good job given what the horrible underlying assumption is. This is another one that in terms of my competitive arc, so this is a big one. I'm sure you can imagine. And I am...
Do you know about the anti-torment? Not judgment, but the other, like, something that we talked about, because we talked about if you were going to do a set that was like based on a color, black is the natural one to be the one.
Yes.
What's the color circa, around the time of Torment or whatever, but what's the color if you're going to do a set that just doesn't have a color? Because I used to experiment in my custom set drafts. I did stuff where it was like, okay, here's a set that half the cards are green. Or here's a set that only has 4 colors. And here's a set, I tried a lot of different stuff in my custom sets.
You're saying I have to cut a color out.
You got to play Magic, but we're going to do a set. And in this set, one of the colors is missing.
I would remove blue.
Exactly.
Yeah. For a lot of reasons, but that's the one. Thank you for watching. Thank you for your support. And we are looking forward to Torment coming up next. I went to high school in the late 90s in New Jersey. This is the mecca of ska. Everyone was in a ska band or dancing in a ska band, which I guess is like being in a ska band or whatever. But yeah.
I've had to dance.
I believe it. Yeah.
Gotta go where the work is.
We have the uncommon Atogs. These are gold.
Atog? Do you call them Atogs in New Jersey?
I have debated this with...
Okay, so I do get that...
Do you think it's Atog or Atog?
It is the Atog.
Really? Okay.
Like,
and then at least
then
at least you have your principles. Because where
Psych-Atog, it's Atog when it's a suffix.
Uh-huh.
but it's Atog when it's by himself.
I don't know if I can spend like the amount of space I've spent cognitively in 30 years on exactly this topic.